Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission for Thursday, January the 27th, 2022. It's good to have everyone here, and it's warmer in here than it is out there, so that's a perk. If you would, turn your cell phones to silent for us, just so it doesn't interrupt the meeting. And if you haven't had a chance and you'd like to be heard on an item today that's going to be before us, you can fill out one of these white sheets of paper right out front, hand that to staff here, and they'll make sure that I get it. At the appropriate time, I'll call on you, I'll ask you to come forward. Give us your name and address for the record when you first get up to the microphone, and be sure and carefully adjust it so it's right in front of your face so we can hear you. After you give us your name and address, you'll have 5 minutes to tell us anything you want to know. We do reserve the right, if comments are redundant or if a point's been made or we're talking about things we're not supposed to be talking about, to interrupt the discussion or limit the discussion. So I'll address that appropriately at that time. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, thanks for being here. And our first order of business is receipt of the minutes from the January 13th, 2022 meeting. If there's no discussion from commissioners on those minutes, I would take a motion to receive them.
Mr. Chairman, there is a correction I wanted to make to the minutes. Ms. Candace Moon actually reached out to me on an item. See if I got mine.
Janice, you might turn your mic on.
Oh, I thought I had. It says it's on.
Okay, now we can hear it. Yeah.
Item number 14. There's an indication that there were no protesters present. She was, in fact, here and did speak, and we heard her and had some discussion. So she wanted the record corrected to show that.
Got it. And I don't recall, because it's been a long time since we've had to do this, do we need to make a formal correction to the minutes, or do we simply notate that in the record?
You can make it, approve them with that amendment.
Okay. So we just want to have an amendment made to item 14 in the minutes from the January 13th meeting that reflects that there were protestants present on item 14 SPUD 1369.
Yes. At
Okay.
least a protester.
At least a protester was present. That's fair. Okay, that's great. So with that change to the minutes, I would take a motion to receive them.
I'll move approval with that change to the minutes.
Okay. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. Maybe. There we go.
Maybe.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Highsmith. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And those minutes are received. Next item on the agenda today is continuance requests. We have a number of those. Mr. Butler, you want to read those into the record for us?
Yes, item 27, case PC 10782, defer to February 10th. Item 28, SP 557, defer to February 24th. Item 29, case PC 10753, defer to February 24th. Item 30, SPUD 1217, defer to March 10th. Item 31, case PC 10783, defer to March 24th. Item 32, PC 10785, defer to March 10th. Item 33, case C 7410, defer to March 10th. And item 34, case PC 10781, defer to May 12th.
Okay. Is there anybody who wanted to be heard on any of those items today? Okay. Seeing none, if there's no discussion from commissioners.
Did he say March 10th or March?
He said March 12th in the record. The agenda reflects March 10th, but he said March 12th, so, or May 12th, excuse me. So that's the difference.
Okay.
Yeah. So if there's no, you got something?
Yes. Box 522 Colcord Drive. On item 31, it should be deferred to March 24th.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I'm looking at an annotated that was given me today, and that's reflected on mine.
Oh, okay.
So,
In the
but
body.
the agenda, got it. Okay. So we'll amend item 31 so that the record reflects March the 24th. Sorry, you. Yeah. Perfect. If there's no further discussion, I'd take a motion on the continuance request as read with the amendment to the date on item 31.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the uncontested continuance requests as read and as amended.
Got it. I'll take that second on that motion on PrimeGov. It's been seconded by Commissioner Highsmith. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And those continuances are approved. I believe we have two new requests that I'm aware of, Mr. Butler.
Yes, item 16 is case PUD 1871, request to defer to February 24th. And item 21, case PUD 1878, defer to February 24th as well.
Okay, is there anybody who wanted to be heard on either of those items today? All right, seeing nobody, if there's no discussion from commissioners, I'd take a motion on those two items as read.
Mr. Chairman, I move that those continuance requests be granted as read.
Okay, I'll have a motion. I'll take the second on Prime Gov. It's been seconded by Commissioner Coffey. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And those continuances are approved. Next item on our agenda is the consent docket. There are 6 items on today's consent agenda. Mr. Butler, you want to read those?
Item 1 is case PC 10791, application to rezone 11100 North University Avenue from R1 to R2. Item 2 is case C7403, final plat of Morgan Glen, Phase 1, located north of Southwest 44th Street and west of South Morgan Road. Item 3 is case C7405, final plat of the Enclave at Creekside Village, Phase 1, located south of Southwest 29th Street and east of South Check Hall Road. Item 4 is the final plat of Rivendell, Section 14, located north of Southwest 134th Street and east of South May Avenue. Item 5 is case C7409, final plat of the Woods at Wilshire, Phase 1, located south of West Wilshire Boulevard and east of the John Kilpatrick Turnpike. And finally, item 6 is case C6866, extension of the final plat of the district located east of North Portland Avenue and south of Northwest 164th Street.
All right, is there anybody who wanted to be heard on any of those items today? Excellent. Seeing none, if there's no discussion on those items from commissioners, I'll take a motion on the consent agenda as read.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the consent agenda as read.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the items on today's consent agenda, 1 through 6. It's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And those items are approved. Next item on our agenda brings us to items requiring separate vote. Our first item on that agenda today is item number 7.
This is PUD SP 1715A, application for a specific plan pursuant to approval of PUD 715, located at 5101 North Pennsylvania Avenue.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, who is also here with us. This is an exciting project that you've seen several times. It's now to the point where we are at a specific plan phase. So why I've got these two exhibits to my left and right is I think it's remarkable that if you look at the site plan on the right, it looks almost identical to the images we showed you several years ago when we were coming through the rezoning phase. The buildings are located in the same place. They're oriented in the same manner all around that great central lawn that will be a key feature to this. Additionally, we are handing you out a series of exhibits showing you the renderings of what will be built here. In this application, we've got the hotel that fronts that lawn. We've got the multifamily, the parking garage associated with that, the retail that is below that, the great lawn, all the landscaping, and the sign package for the development. So it's a very detailed submission. And if you read your staff report, you'll note that it does conform with the PUD. And again, it's several years of work come to this point. We're excited to be able to move it forward. So we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, we appreciate that. I'll just note for the purpose of the record, staff's review, the specific plan for the development indicates the proposal is consistent with PUD 1715, the master design statement, and the master development plan. But with that said, I will turn it over to Commissioner Powers. This is her ward. I know she's been deeply involved in this project from the start, to see if she has any comments or questions for the applicant.
First of all, I would like to ask whether there's anybody here to speak on this item today. And I think the fact that there's not is kind of a testament to the amount of time and effort that the applicant has put into working with surrounding property owners. This has been a long, long process to get to this point. We're not quite there yet, but we're right on the verge, and I think that's really wonderful. This is going to change the shape of this area, and I think in a good way, in a very good way. And so if there's not anyone else who wants to be heard or any other comments or questions from commission, I am very pleased that, and this is a staggering amount of detail, I know, to look through. But the one thing that I would point out, I guess, although I seem to be the person who's principally concerned about signage, is that the actual signage for each tenant will have a separate process. What we're approving today as a sign package has to do with the overall development signage. So, and it'll have a uniform feel to it. This is just a wonderful project, I think. So I'm very pleased to move approval.
Okay. If there's no other discussion from commissioners, I'll take that motion from Commissioner Powers. I have a motion to approve the specific plan for PUD 17, or excuse me, for PUD SP 1715A. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast.
Thank you.
And that item is approved. Good luck with the project. It's exciting. Next item on the agenda today is item number 8.
This is case C7404, preliminary plat of Ashley Farms, located south of Southwest 119th Street and west of South Council Road.
Good afternoon, Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll, 300 Point Parkway Boulevard, representing the applicant. And this is a preliminary plat that conforms with the current PUD as well as your subdivision regulations. There's 4 TEs that we're in agreement with, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dillon. I don't have any questions. Commissioner Coffey, this is your ward, ma'am. Do you have questions for the applicant on this? I do have a couple people, just so you know, who have signed up to speak.
I do not have questions that have not already been answered in my discussion with the applicant. As you say, there are some individuals who have had some questions and some have signed up to speak.
Is your microphone on, Mary? There we go.
Sorry, it fell off. I do not have questions that have not already been answered by the applicant's representative. There are some who have been signed up to speak. Okay.
Yeah, I have 2 folks that would like to be heard.
Okay, I'd like to hear those. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Well, with that, I will turn to the folks that had signed up on this item. The first person I have signed up to speak today is Adrian Little. Adrian Little, are you present? Please come forward and give us your name and address for the record, and let us know what we need to know about this or what questions you've got.
I'm Adrian Little. I'm one of the residents right behind this property. Address is 12525 Rempe Farm Road.
And when you say behind, could you kind of indicate on the?
Yeah, just to the right side here, the first house. So Rempe Farm Road, you go down, it'll be the first house. If you're going down the street on the right, on this map, it shows on the left there.
Okay,
We
great.
back up to the new property. So I'm actually here I'm here really on behalf of our tiny neighborhood, 4 homes. We got Newen here, Friedenberger and Lewandowski live across the street. Myself, the Littles, and the Newens live on the side adjacent to this development. We back up to it. Yep, those 2 homes right there. And so we just have a few concerns, questions that we have, really mainly as the project kind of takes place, since it's going to be multi-year, lots of homes. So we have several horses on the property. I think we're concerned. We have some concerns just regarding that. When this project is taking place, we would like to kindly request some sort of a privacy fence or something. The concern is with some of the other developments that have taken place nearby, we've experienced quite a bit of trash and items coming in that pose a danger. Anybody who has farm animals, vet bills can get expensive if they consume something. So we're not here to have a whole lot more than just a few requests and concerns. The other one, it's really a few questions just regarding septic systems or any type of, I don't think Oklahoma City has any sewage, so it'd be septic systems. We're all on wells. Mine is only 65 foot deep. It's the shallowest well there. So we have some concerns about almost 200 homes having septic in the area and the water quality impacts to it. It's already not that great. We don't have, because of the nature of where we live, we're pretty isolated in terms of having the ability to get any utilities, really. We only have electricity down the street. Rempe Farm Road actually serves as right-of-way more so than an official city or state road. So additionally, we have experienced several issues regarding drainage already. As the new ones, I think, are probably the newest house there. and then just slight modifications to the layout impacted everybody, all of us. So we've all been kind of sensitive to especially when we have rains. The ground from west to east does slope down, and we're all somewhere in that slope. And myself, I've already had to do quite a bit of dirt work to address some of the drainage that exists without any of the impacts from the other side with this new development. Currently, it's just it's a tree farm. So there's plenty of open soil to absorb water, and yet we still have issues. So we have concerns as to direction of drainage. And lastly, one of the things that we do see, this kind of pertains to the first point that we've made, is the just general trash with, man, I'll tell you, we've with the new development, that's the PUD 1562 there, we experience quite a bit of trash, and they're quite a bit of ways from us. So we have concerns of having a project that's going to be multi-year, many homes getting built, and who's going to be responsible if there's a lot of issues with that. Again, my concern is horses. They're nice horses. They're pretty expensive horses, and impacts to that, and also children's safety, and just in general, keeping the area nice. There's right behind my house, which is the first house on that side, the northernmost house, there used to be a well there. And I'm curious, that well hasn't been operational for several years. I think it might have been capped and removed already. So I just didn't know if that any impacts to water quality or soil or anything else, if that's been kind of closed out. And lastly, just a general concern with working times and things like that. If there's any issues, we'd like to at least have this is going to be going on for so many years. And oftentimes one of the, again, experience from the neighborhood that's quite a bit farther out, we've had crews there till 8, 9 o'clock catching up on a roofing project, or at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning doing the same. So I don't think our concerns are really too major, just kind requests. I think the biggest ask is some sort of a privacy fencing for protection of property and animals and everybody else, if that could be a request made. So
Got it. Okay, is that everything?
that's all my notes.
Okay.
I haven't thought of anything else.
Let me try to address these to
sir.
the best that I can, and I
Yeah.
will rely on the applicant and staff to tell me what I tell you is wrong.
Okay.
How's that? Okay. If you would, or if you would, Mr. Dillon, would you mind coming over here? So on the fencing, my suspicion is that the fencing for each lot will be constructed at the time a building permit is pulled for each one.
That's correct.
Which is standard practice and in line with what we see every time. I will ask, I'll come back to that, so don't panic yet. On the septic side of things, the use of septic sewer would have been approved at the time the zoning was done. Sure. So that item has been heard by this commission. It went on to city council, and septic was approved as a part of that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So septic will be allowed as a part of the project. At this point, that's not for us to approve or disapprove or alter. It was done at the time the property was rezoned. Okay. The drainage, we hear that a lot. I would say, I don't know, 9 out of 10 complaints about plats deal with drainage. I do believe there's a little bit of a misconception in that most of the time the drainage is improved, if not dramatically so, when development occurs, because you're taking unimproved farmland that's not, essentially directed towards storm runoff. When they come back through to do a final plat on this project, they'll have to present a drainage plan. At that time, staff will have to approve that. And so that will be reviewed once again to determine if their detention requirements are met. They're going to look at the way they've laid out the streets, the lots, et cetera, and they'll be able to ascertain whether or not more would be required to prevent a drainage issue from the project that they're going to develop over that time period for creating a problem for you or for anybody else. Does that make sense? Yep. That's when that occurs in the process.
Sure.
Trash, I'll come back to. Well info, I'm not familiar with the well, and that's not my packet. Can you provide some color there as the
Yeah, I think there's an existing well that's part of the, the facility down to the south, but I think it's been abandoned and plugged, but that's something certainly we can deal with. And I'll be happy to provide the gentleman with my contact information. So a lot of these concerns we can get together and explain our process and what we do.
Mr. Dillon's email is also in the publicly provided documents that are available on okc.gov in today's agenda packet if you need to find it there.
That's good.
So, and then last but not least, building hours. I wish I knew that, remembered that offhand, but I don't. What is allowed to occur? Do you know, or do you want me to direct that to
I
staff?
don't know of any regulation other than whatever noise ordinance
That's what I would have
place
thought.
as far as the construction of the homes.
Yeah, so this is going to be the most annoying answer you've gotten today.
Yeah.
But assuming that
okay,
the
I get it.
noise exceeded a certain decibel level, it would violate the ordinance. This is residentially zoned underneath, right, the PUD?
That's correct.
So the noise ordinance would be 55 decibels. You can get your decibel gun out and shoot it at the noise. And if, you gotta have a sense of humor because life's too short.
Yeah, no, I'm already thinking, because where I work, and I work as a facilities
Yeah.
project manager for OG&E, so I'm sure that I can have access to one. So
Well, if it exceeds that level, they're gonna be sorry, I'll tell you
call
that
them
right
like, hey, it's
now.
Saturday morning, man.
Yeah, 56
We're
decibels,
at
pal.
56, yeah. I get
Yeah.
it.
So, but real quickly on the fencing, what type of construction fencing? Is it just erosion control? Is that what's constructed prior to the lots going up? Is there anything else that?
Yeah, it's just silt fence or those sort of things as far as erosion goes. Now, like I say, I don't know when the houses are built. Typically, we'd see a stockade, but in this case, I don't know. It may be vinyl. I don't know that we know that. There was no regulations in the PUD, and again, like I say, this is preliminary plat. But I'll be happy to visit with my client and get with them, and we can work through some of those issues.
Yeah, again, staff can chime in if I'm wrong, but there's not really anything we could enforce.
Sure.
Except that in the PUD, there are screening regulations requirements. My guess is here it's in line with what the underlying zoning is. So they've got a selection of fencing materials they can use, but they don't have to construct it until, I think it's when the permit is pulled.
With the house.
With the house, that's what I
Right.
mean. So with each lot. So it is a point of frustration. If it becomes a problem, the city's action center, which there's an app for that, as it turns out. And you can use that to make a report, and I would encourage you to do it. I think Mr. Dillon, too, you've got his email. If you notice there are problems, you should bring those to his attention. I'm sure that they want to be good neighbors, and if they're not, let the Action Center know.
Yeah, I think the point of bringing these relatively, they're not nothing major, right?
No,
Is
they're
to
very
bring it up,
reasonable.
highlight it. I'm concerned we have, I think that even with the animals and the other, there's a big liability. We have a previous experience having neighbors feeding our horses and or petting them. It's a huge liability. So if you have a construction project where not only people reach over, it also is materials coming by and the liability and expense and frustration in general from that, especially 198 homes?
198.
It's going to be many, many years of that. So we feel like it's kind of a small ask. It would address the majority, I think, of the concerns that we have. So.
Okay. Well, Mr. Little, we appreciate you
Yeah.
coming down and sharing with us. I do have somebody else that signed up. I want to give them an opportunity to be heard as well. I hope I've answered your questions to the best of my ability and our ability, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
everyone.
The next person I have signed up is Jennifer, and don't get mad at me if I'm wrong about this, Koneman. Did I get it? Boom, 1 for 1. Okay, there's hope.
Did very well. Jennifer Koneman. I live at 12601 South Council Road. So on your map, I am the very furthest southwest point of that corner. My biggest concern is I have a couple. I have a gas, an NGL pipeline in my field that goes across the street, and literally where you have houses 18 and 19 on your map, it runs right there at the back side of that. So with having one, house blown up recently in Oklahoma City, I just want to make sure that's looked at and noted, because you have the one in the middle taken care of, which you've got all this common area. There is one that runs all down this east side. I'm not sure where that's at, as I don't see that on the map at all. I just know that one on the southwest because it's literally in my yard and in front of my house. The other part I'm really concerned with is it talks about that you are going to preserve the maturity, healthy trees. This is a tree farm, and my view to the east is amazing right now because it's nothing but trees. And I just want to know that all those trees are not going to go to waste. What I'm being told is it's going to get bulldozed flat and built up, and there's a lot of mature trees there. There's a lot of, we have deer and wild turkey, and they sort of go where they want to go. And Mr. Little addressed a lot of my questions as far as sewage and drainage, and, we get a lot of dump dogs, and so fences would help with, people's dogs running free, because we all have livestock out there. There's only 3 of us on that South Council Road that it's called a substandard south of 119th Street. There's 3 of us that live on that substandard road. I've been out there since '03, and I went because I love it. It's in the country, and we've known for a long time people are coming our way. I mean, we've watched it, we're not crazy, not thinking it's not gonna catch up to us, but the thought of losing that entire tree farm and all that beautiful landscape to be replaced by houses is just something we would like to know that some of them are going to stay. At least we're not gonna lose all of our trees.
Okay. Thank you very much for your concerns. I'll take a swing at the trees. I'm going to let Mr. Dillon take a swing at the pipeline. No pun intended. The trees, again, would have been discussed at the zoning level. I grant you, it's pretty ambiguous language that they have to preserve those trees to the best of their ability. That's something at the time that the permits are reviewed and approved and all that sort of stuff. They'll review the zoning. So there's people looking at that. And we did the best that we could in preserving those or requiring that, but allowing the development to go forward. So yes, they're going to cut down trees and build houses. What I will say is, I think they have a vested interest in trying to preserve things that are not scrub oaks and mature trees, because those help sell lots and houses too. So, I mean, if you want to add anything to that. As the
Yeah, I
representative
think that's
applicant.
exactly right. I think that's our intent. Obviously, there's a reasonable amount of them that will have to come out, but especially on a project like this, our intent's going to be to save all of them that we possibly can.
Yeah. So, what about, what say you on the pipeline? Obviously,
as far
that's
as
contemplated because you
Right,
can see it.
we've got surveys. We actually have an oil and gas attorney that's helped us with this thing along the way. There's some of them that we have discovered are abandoned. There's other ones that we've worked with. You'll notice the line, common area that kind of runs to the northwest. There's an existing line there that we've worked out encroachment. But all of the oil and gas people that have facilities on this have been accounted for, and so this plan works.
And you've been in contact with them
Certainly.
undoubtedly and discussed
Certainly.
the pipeline and placement and
That's right.
access to it and all those sorts of
Okay.
things. I mean, so does that help you?
Sort of,
I
yeah.
know.
I mean, I know mine's active because they come out and check it, and like last summer, they were in Scaramucci's field working on it. I know where it goes just because of
Sure.
work, but yeah, that helps me.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down. Is there anybody else who wants to be heard on C-7407 today that I did not call? Those are the only 2 people I had signed up to speak. Okay. Commissioner Coffey, do you have additional questions for the applicant on this?
No, I do not have additional questions.
Okay. Any other discussion from commissioners? All right. Well, if not, I think we need a motion.
I move approval of the
Yep.
application C
I think your mic fell off again, Commissioner Coffey. It doesn't like that sweater.
It doesn't.
Okay.
I move approval of the application C 7404.
I do have a motion. I'll hold that motion for 1 second, Commissioner Coffey. Please don't second the motion at this time.
I'm sorry, the upper northeast corner of that part of that land was sold, and I think Mr. Little can help me on this. The gentleman who purchased that has put in almost like stadium lighting. So will the lighting that they're going to be doing in that neighborhood, is it going to be, I mean, it's literally like he has put stadium lights out there. So that, I don't know if there's a lighting zone or who I would even contact to find out if there's
Great
how
question.
big of a light can you put out?
Yep.
But we went
There
from
will
being
not
dark
be any
to,
stadium lighting in the neighborhood PUD. I feel fairly confident that that wasn't approved.
Right, and we don't own that track she's referring
Yeah.
to, but this will have standard street lights.
right?
for
Yeah,
residential
again, I'm
neighborhoods.
trying to keep it a bit light. That's not something, I mean, the lighting requires that there are codes and ordinances that require limitations on the lighting, how high it can be, where it can shine, et cetera. So
Okay.
those codes have to be respected. If you think that that's an issue, again, that would be a great example of something you could put to the Action Center if you
Okay.
felt like there was a problem. And I'd probably contact the Action Center about the makeshift softball field across the street from you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry.
You bet. No problem at all. Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Coffey. That motion was made to approve the preliminary plat to C-7404. I need a second on PrimeGov if someone would like to make it. It is with the TEs, yes, ma'am. I suppose that's true. Commissioner Coffey, your intention was to require the technical evaluations?
Yes, they have agreed to the 4 technical evaluations.
Yep. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that item is Commissioner Privet. I voted. I got a green dot on my screen.
I did too, but I'm a yay.
I got to look at the green dot. Commissioner Privet has voted. So do you vote aye?
Yeah.
I also vote aye. Now all votes should be cast. And
Thank
that
you.
preliminary plat is approved. That's high drama in Planning Commission, folks, high drama.
Operator error must be.
Appreciate everybody coming down, and to those that came, really appreciate it. We certainly want to know what concerns there are, and really, at the plat stage, oftentimes, we are trying to help homeowners and adjacent property owners get information about what's going on with the development as anything else, and we're certainly happy to do that. Next item on our agenda today is item number 9. Mr. Butler.
This is case C-7406, a preliminary plat of Harris Creek, located north of Northwest 150th Street and west of North Star Road. And it also includes a variance to section 5.3.1.d.5 of the subdivision regulations.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Here on behalf of the applicant, Zach Roach, Richard McCown, also here, and Mark Zitzow. This is the preliminary plat of Harris Creek. You will recall just recently we came through with a comp plan amendment and the PUD for this tract. It's 160 acres, 438 single-family lots, which equates to 2.72 dwelling units per acre. We do agree with all the technical evaluations, except we do need the variance on TE2, and so much of the exhibits I've handed out deal with that. And so if you look at the exhibit before you that's also in your packet, we want to talk about why we don't want the connection, but first focus on the access points we have. So we've got 2 access points on Sarah, and then we are making a connection to the north with that R1 neighborhood that was approved. So we will have access both to Sarah and then all the way up to, I believe it's 178 to the north. That neighborhood stubs to the east and west. The reason that we don't want to stub to the west is if you look through this, what you will find is Johnson Associates did a survey of the existing conditions of that road, and it's in fairly poor shape. It is not to city standards. It is failing at the subgrade at multiple places. And so when you think of what this neighborhood is going to be, a traditional R1 neighborhood, it doesn't make sense to connect the type of volume that could come through here to a substandard road that has 5-acre lots to the west. You'll recall a neighbor was here during the PUD process who was very supportive of the development, and his only concern was the ability to connect to the west. He did not want that. The neighbors didn't want it. So that was an agreement that we had in the PUD at that time. It was an agreement that was very important to the council person when we got the PUD approved. So we would ask that that agreement be upheld in this. And we believe that the subregs give you the discretion to consider things like incompatibility, the type of roadway, when considering whether or not a variance is appropriate. If you think about the number of homes and the number of construction vehicles that will undoubtedly be traversing this neighborhood through a period of years, the road, again, which is already failing to the west, which is a sleepy 5-acre tract development, will be absolutely decimated by that. And so we would ask to not provide that connection to the west. We have adequate access points throughout, so we don't need a variance in terms of not enough access points. We connect to the east, we connect to the north. So we would ask that you grant us that variance on TE number 2. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Coffey, no rest for the weary. This is your ward, ma'am. Do you have questions or concerns on this for the applicant?
So it's Ward 1.
Oh, I'm sorry, my packets are, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My fault, I flipped back to the wrong one. It is Ward 1. Commissioner Clare's not with us. So are there commissioners who have concerns on this? If not, I'll take the discussion.
Well, I guess the obvious question would be whether it would be appropriate to place a crash gate as an additional access point to the west. I understand what you're saying about the condition of, I guess we're talking about Greenwood Drive.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm not unsympathetic to that point of view, especially with respect to construction vehicles and so on. But in terms of you know, emergency vehicles, I'm asking other commissioners, I guess, if they have a view about that.
Well, one thing that's on here, on the exhibit that we were given, shows that there's a, it looks like a floodway that crosses Sarah Road, so it's at least conceivable in two places that it'd be hard to access this property from the east side at some point. Just, you know, perfect conditions to your point. I mean, I'm supportive of the idea that you're presenting circumstances that would alter our normal discussion about connectivity. I'd love to hear from city staff if they've done any assessment on this road. There's some people here today that if we were to do anything to Greenwood Road before we did something to Cemetery, Check Hall, or Sarah, would probably be waiting for me outside.
Could I address the crash gate? We would be supportive of that idea if it was needed. But if you look, both of our access points on Sarah are boulevard style, and in addition, we connect to the north. So from a fire safety standpoint, it is not necessary. We have multiple points of access with multiple boulevard entries. So we meet the requirements that are in place for fire safety. So we don't believe even a crash gate is needed.
Why would you be opposed to a crash gate? I'm just curious.
Well, because it's just not needed. And to put a random stub street there that undoubtedly will just collect trash and debris and parked cars is just, I don't think something that is needed and therefore would become potentially unsightly.
Okay. I don't have anybody sign up to speak on this. I am curious, is there anybody here that wants to be heard on this item today? C-7406? Okay.
I'd love to chip in on the conversation. I agree. I think, right, a lot of these stub streets are really a plan for the future. And understanding that this is not ready yet is okay, but I do think it seems to me that, you know, the potential that this road might get improvements or that this area might redevelop, I think are both, right, very realistic for the future and down the road, and it would do exactly what I think the intention is of interconnectivity at that point.
Well, no, it's already developed to the west.
Well, for now, right? Things change. I mean, this used to be AA land, right? My point is, at some future date, it is very possible that they would sell this land and it might start to densify.
Well, if you look to the west, it's developed as a full neighborhood. So what you're really talking about is 20 separate individuals all deciding at the same time to sell.
Did you look at item 7 today? I mean, the oak. Well, you understand that things change over time, and I think it's very realistic to.
It's also worth noting this street to our west was always designed as a cul-de-sac. It wasn't designed as a stub, and so it is inconceivable for me to believe that Greenwood Drive and Greenwood Circle and everyone that owns those 5-acre lots would somehow, in a coordinated effort, sell all of those properties and it would be redeveloped single family.
Forever's a long time.
But it's inconceivable that that's going to happen.
I understand. Forever's a long time.
Well, to be fair, I think, to go along with Commissioner Highsmith's point, it's not necessarily that it would all happen at once, but it's that it could happen gradually over time, that the lots kind of, you know, split off over time. And this happens all the time all over the city. People come in and they split their lot and sell a piece, and over time that could happen. I think that's...
Well, at 150th and Sarah, with all due respect, it's hard for me to see that 5-acre tracts get rezoned in a manner that's less than 5 acres, and then it somehow allows a cascading effect to allow this to be single family where the connection would become appropriate. I mean,
let's get down to what this really is about. How many lots are you losing with a stub, with a crash gate stub? One lot?
It looks like
2 lots?
one, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's not really about even losing the lot. It's about putting a stub there that's unnecessary and will never be used, and it becomes unsightly. It's not needed.
You're asking us to balance equities there then, between unsightliness and trash and connectivity, or I should say emergency-based connectivity.
And again, if there were a comment in the staff report from Fire saying that based upon no connection they have concerns, we'd be up here saying absolutely we'll agree to it. But there isn't any comment from Fire to request a crash gate.
That's presumably because a variance is required in the application in order to exclude the connectivity, though.
Well, but Mr. Wilson with the Fire Marshal's office is not bashful, and he will come and protest when necessary. I mean, we need the variance to the connectivity, But that doesn't create an issue from a fire safety standpoint that we have been advised of, because we still have adequate access.
To be clear, for me, it is not a fire and emergency issue. It's a connectivity issue.
And so that's fair. So now we're really talking about two different things. So if it's purely connectivity issue, if we look at the status of the street to the west, it simply is not compatible with what we're doing. We're building streets to public standards. These aren't. We made specific agreements with the neighbors and the council person at at City Council. And so based upon the incompatibility of road types, we're asking for the Planning Commission to grant us that variance.
Let's see where other folks are. I think it's pretty clear. I know where several people are. Is there anybody else who has comments or feels differently on this, wants to make an argument another way?
I think it's important that we stick to the connectivity argument. We've been having this ongoing discussion about the importance of connectivity, and I think we need to hold developers to that standard that we expect connectivity. It's in the comp plan. I think we need to enforce it to the greatest extent possible. If this is a crash gate, it sounds like it's not going to be a used connection regularly.
I was going to ask, are you agreeable or amenable to the crash gate? So it's okay. All right.
Yeah, I am.
I just want to understand for sure what your perspective is.
And I assumed that Commissioner Highsmith was the same on that, right?
Yes, I understand what they brought, and I agree at this point. Maybe it doesn't make sense, but to me, these stub streets are about future connectivity. Everything we do here is about managing change over time. To me, it's about looking forward. I think that's what this commission does. And to me, it's totally acceptable to say, look, at some point, this might change to the west. I think that's completely reasonable. So
I'm not saying it's not reasonable, but that the crash gate, we're talking two different things when we say that, the crash gate.
Well, a crash gate is an easy thing to undo. It's an easy thing to alter long-term if connectivity becomes more needed or appropriate, depending on what happens. But a house on a lot in a development that's platted is a whole lot harder to change 30 years from now or 50 years from now. Again, forever is a long time. So anybody have any, Commissioner Clare is not here, and I did not hear from him on this case specifically, so I don't have comments to share. But I would be in favor of the crash gate. If anybody feels differently, speak up. If not, I think we're at a crash gate.
We're happy to do the crash gate. I do like the analysis, though, moving forward, that high-density single-family next to developed 5-acre tracts poses the potential for, splitting off those lots in the future for single-family. So Mr. Butler, I do appreciate that.
Okay, well, we'll have that discussion at a later date. Right now, we're going to talk about a crash gate. Somebody get this guy out of here. Can we get this guy out of here? Somebody get this guy out of here. All right, well.
Do we just need to modify TE2 to allow for a crash gate? Jared?
I guess it's been a while. Jared Martin, can we modify TE2 just to, do we still grant the variance, or do we just allow for the crash gate?
It has to be a variance still, because we're technically not connected.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I thought.
Variance, but a crash gate's required, perhaps gets us there.
Yeah, I guess you could do it that way. The only thing we really didn't discuss is these are public streets. We don't typically put a crash gate on, but I guess we could.
What's not a public street?
No, these are public streets.
These are public streets.
Right, understood.
Staff is indicating it's a problem to put a crash gate when it's a public street.
Somebody should have told us that 10 minutes ago. What are we doing here?
You guys were on a roll.
There's people on wooden benches out there. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, and one other point is, it doesn't actually go to the property line. That street to the west stops short. We somehow have to get permission, which they won't grant us, to be able to make a connection.
Why didn't you say that 10 minutes ago?
Because I thought I had you.
Can we require it? Legal staff, we need to know. Let's move this thing.
I think it would require something from Traffic Commission in order to put a gate across a public right-of-way.
So if we require it today, it would have to go to Traffic Commission in order to do it.
Yeah, I'm. Is it on?
Yeah.
The other option would be for their street stub to be a private street. Then they could gate that private street.
No.
We've done that a couple of times.
This is getting too complicated.
Okay.
If that's the case, then we just,
My question was, would this be an appropriate place to put a crash gate? Sounds like, despite all of our discussion, the answer to that question is no.
no, agreed. So,
Well, and very quickly, and I know we're trying to move this, to me, it having to go to traffic commission seems like just a natural part of the step. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make this tougher on them, but sometimes things have to go from here to there, and I think that's okay.
I'm not even sure legally, though, you can do it, is the
Yeah,
problem.
that's-
It's a public street.
yeah.
I don't think the
see what
traffic
you're saying.
commission
I
could
see what you're
grant me
saying.
a crash gate on Walker.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, if that's the case, then I think the variance is appropriate. So we're right back to where we started, unfortunately. You got lucky on this one. We're going to be looking for crash gates all over your items in the future. I'm going to put crash gates everywhere. Somebody want to make a motion on this thing?
Mr. Chairman,
I need a motion on the variance first.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reluctantly approve the variance to section 5.3.1.d.5 of the subdivision regulations.
It's a reluctant motion. Do I have a second? Okay, it's been seconded on PrimeGov. Please cast your votes by Commissioner Hinkle. All votes should be cast. Commissioner Coffey. There we go. And the variance is reluctantly approved.
Thank you.
Need a motion on the item.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve C-7406.
I have a motion to approve the preliminary plat to C-7406. Please second that on PrimeGov when available. It's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. 1, 2, 3, all votes should be cast. And that item is approved
Thank you.
reluctantly. Next item on our agenda today is item number 10.
This item is case C-7408, preliminary plat of Harris Creek, and this is located north of Northwest 150th Street and west of North Sarah Road. And, oh, wait a second, are we in the right item?
So 1706,
1708.
7406.
7408.
Okay.
Oh, wait, we were just on
08.
6, yeah.
This is item 10, 7408,
So
preliminary
10,
plat of a tributary.
7408 tributary. And this is located south of Northeast 122nd Street and east of Northeastern Avenue. On this one, we also have variances to section 5.3.1.d.5, 5.10.4.b, 5.10.5.b, and table 5.1 in section 5.3.2 of the subdivision regulations.
Good afternoon. David Box, 522 Concord Drive. Here on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Zitzow is still here by my side. So I have a bit of good news in terms of the number of variances that were just read. On TE2 and TE3, we are going to agree to extend the public sewer and the public water. So that can get rid of the variance on 2 and 3, and then should also get rid of TE4 because we will have public water and presumably fire hydrants through there, so individual fire suppression won't be required. So I believe we can delete TEs 2, 3, and 4. We agree to TEs 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So that leaves us still 2 TEs with variances that are needed. TE 5 is a variance to the length of the cul-de-sac. So what is requiring this variance is the shape of the property. It is a standalone development that has large swaths of floodplain that runs through it, and it's fully developed with horse barns and kind of its own development to the east. So it's a strange shape. There's no other way to develop it. These are a minimum of 1 acre lots. It's worth noting that. These are 1 acre lots. The underlying zoning is R1. So somebody certainly could have come in here and requested a plat of something of greater density. Instead of having my friend Lance Cook here in support with a smile on his face, he'd be in the back glaring me down with all of his neighbors ready to protest. So the shape of the tract is what's requiring a variance there. Likewise, on TE6, related to interconnection between quarter sections, again, we have floodplain, floodway to the west, to the south, and slightly to the east. And to the east is fully developed with a home and horse barns. So there's really no opportunity of any future development in this area. So we would request, more than reluctantly, a variance to TE on TE 5 and 6. Be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Pennington, this is your ward, sir. I'll let you lead our discussion on C-7408.
Don't have any questions, and it looks like I'm going to be more supportive of David's variances today. That's all I have. I'm
Okay.
ready to hear public comment.
I'll double check and make sure I don't have anybody signed up to speak, but is there anybody that would like to be heard on C-7408? Hello.
Yes, I need to bring your attention to the variance for the length of the cul-de-sac design. They are extending the water service. I have not seen a plan to be able to loop the water service, so this creates a very long dead-end water main. So if they can design it as such to be able to connect it back to the main up along the frontage road, then I would allow this long dead end. That's my only concern for this long dead end main.
So at the time of final plat, we'll work with utilities and make sure they're happy with what we've got.
Do we need to require that in writing?
I think it's already a requirement.
Okay.
At the final
Municipal
plat.
Council is just recommending that we include it as a TE for the purposes of final plot.
Just to, you could have the requirement of 2 connectivities to the circulation of a water system, not have a dead-end water main.
So we'd prefer not to have it a TE. I mean, we need to go design it first. And so to make it a requirement when we don't know we can do it, what we can commit to is we'll go sit down with staff, try to design it in a manner that is pleasing with them. Not every water line in the city is looped. I mean, there are instances where you have issues like this where it doesn't allow it.
There is, but you should be able to avoid it where possible, and since this is a new design, it can be designed as such to avoid it.
I think it's probably, since it's coming back for final platting, I mean, as long as you're on notice to come back to us, and we're going to expect to hear from you that you're happy with whatever you all have worked out. That's sufficient to me if it's sufficient to everybody else.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I just don't want to require it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? I didn't see anybody else that wanted to be heard. I don't think I missed anybody. All right. Commissioner Pennington, if you're ready, sir, do you know where we are?
Yeah, I think we're ready to approve some variances.
We've got 2 left.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the variance to Table 5.1 in Section 5.3.2 of the subdivision regulations.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the variance outlined in Technical Evaluation 5. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that variance is approved.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the variance to Section 5.3.1.D.5 of the subdivision regulations.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the variance as stipulated in Technical Evaluation number 6. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast, and that variance is approved.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of C-7408 with the following amendments to technical evaluations, eliminating technical evaluations 2, 3, and 4.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the preliminary plat, the C-7408, with the technical evaluations deleting 2, 3, and 4 as read. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that plat is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda today is item 11.
This is SPUD 1372, an application to rezone 1734 Northwest 13th Street from R2 to SPUD 1372.
Hello, I'm Jeff Struble, 1111 Northwest 15th Street. Like I said, this is an R2 property that we are rezoning to put 2 duplexes, 1-story duplexes with 4 parking spots. Here to answer any questions.
Okay. Commissioner Highsmith, sir, this is your ward. Do you have questions for the applicant on this one?
I really don't. We've got a recommendation for approval. I do have a couple comments, but I'd love to make those after, if anybody has any comments of their own.
Happy to see. I do not have anybody sign up to speak. Is there anybody that wants to be heard today on this item? SPUD 1372. Doesn't look that way.
Yeah, I think, to me, there's duplexes in a neighborhood that's developing. I think it's an appropriate amount of density. I think the look of it's a little bit unique, and I'm excited to see how that works out. But overall, I think it's appropriate, and I'm happy to make a recommendation.
Okay. If there's no other comments from commissioners, I'll take the motion.
I'd like to, sorry, I should put it aside. I'll make a recommendation for approval on Spud 1372.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council of SPUD 1372. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. Now all votes are cast. And the item is recommended for approval. Good luck.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next item is item number 12, and I think you're right back.
This is SPUD 1373, application to rezone 1511 Northwest 11th Street from R2 to SPUD 1373.
Jeff Struble, 1111 Northwest 15th Street. This is the same as the one before. Hoping we can get this passed too. It has a great potential by the nice park.
Okay. Is there anybody who wants to be heard on SPUD 1373? Okay, seeing no one, Commissioner Highsmith, this is your ward. Do you have additional comments or different comments on this one?
I mean, it's basically the same area. It's not the exact same street, but they're pretty close. And again, recommendation of approval from staff and no TEs. So I'm happy to make a recommendation.
Okay, I think we're ready for it.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval on Spud 1373.
I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1373. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that item is recommended for approval. Good luck with that one. Thank you. Next item on our agenda today is item 13.
This is SPUD 1374, application to rezone 912 West Britton Road from C4 to SPUD 1374.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, on behalf of the applicant, who's also here with us. This is another project that is in the Britton District. Most of the Britton District is Zone C4, which, as you all know, is very, very intense. The irony is what we want to do here with a tap room and a brewery and distillery is not allowed under C4. So in essence, what we've done is through the SPUD downzoned it to have a base of C3 and simply added the uses necessary for distillery, tap room, and making it an event space. So it's a cool project in a district that is fastly coming online. There was one protest letter that I want to address briefly that talked about parking. This site is fully developed as is with building without a standalone parking lot, but there are angled spaces along Britton, and then there are some other shared parking that exists within the district. So it's worth noting that we could go develop today under the C4 and of course wouldn't have any parking. So this is kind of what this district has become. It's similar to what the Plaza District. This is what you expect to find in urban districts. So we think this is another step in the right direction for the overall Britton District, and be happy to answer any questions. There are 2 TEs, both of which we agreed to.
Okay, great. I will say, just for the folks who wrote in, I did receive, and I believe other commissioners did too, one letter of protest that was sent to us via email by staff. And forgive me if I mispronounce your name, it's not intentional, Mike Rosser, and 2 letters of support. One I read from Mark Weinmeister, and the other one from Mara Baker. So those are the letters I received. They were sent to us via email, not included in the packet. Commissioner Powers, this is your ward, ma'am. Do you have questions or concerns on this for the applicant?
I wonder if there's anybody here who wants to be heard on this item today.
I did not have anybody sign up to speak, but I'll ask because of the protest letters. Is there anybody who wants to be heard on SPUD 1374? Okay, so we have our letters, but...
we do have these quirky little areas all over the sort of more intense part of, mostly it's wards 7 and 6 and 2, where you have these intense zonings that are left over from the dawn of zoning in Oklahoma City. You have these C4 uses. There are so many things that could happen to this property that would be so much worse than this.
I can't believe it's not allowed in C4. I thought everything but burning tires was allowed in C4.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
I am surprised. But that kind of goes back to another pre-part of Oklahoma City, I guess. But what's happening to the Britton District is such a wonderful transformation. There are issues with parking, as there are in all these little commercial nodes that were developed at a time when not everybody owned a car or more than one car. It is what it is. This is a perfect reimagining of this space, I think. This kind of a use for it seems right on point to me. The fact that there's not dedicated parking for this is, not even surprising given where it is. So I am pleased to see what's happening along Britton Road. Yes, there will be issues that will have to be dealt with. That's why there's a whole streetscape development along there to kind of reimagine it. The current speed limit along there is like 25 miles an hour, which is what it is on Western Avenue, where the little commercial node is around the Will Rogers Theater. So, you know, I think this is a good thing and will be a step in the right direction for this area, and I would be more than happy to move approval.
Excellent. I couldn't agree more. I think anything we can do to bring critical mass to this area and help solidify its stability is very important to its survival, and I think it's wonderful. This is an attractant for the entire area. There's residential redevelopment going on here. It's great. So money for schools and sales taxes. Let's do it. I've got a motion to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1374. It's been seconded. It's been seconded by Commissioner Coffey. Both the TEs were included and approved by the applicant, so please cast your votes.
Thank you.
And that item is recommended for approval. Next item on the agenda is item 14.
This is SBUD 1375, application to rezone 1102 Northeast 6th Street from R2.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Before you today is an SPUD to permit essentially an extension of the Culture Coffee operation. Directly to our west is the Paige Woodson redevelopment. As part of that, there was a small corner at 6th and Stonewall that was permitted for a light retail coffee shop. And so for the past several years, Culture Coffee has been operating there. They also operate a food truck, and they have been parking it in this area via a generator and other hookups. They approached the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal about this small piece of land at the corner, catty corner to them, for an expansion essentially of a patio and to allow for a location for them to park that food truck. In addition, it allows us the opportunity to work through this site and provide for an electrical hookup to get rid of the generator, and so some of the noise and sounds that would come from a food truck will be mitigated. We've met with the JFK neighborhood on January 9th. We went through the proposal. There was general support. We did not hear any concerns at that time. And we've continued to work with them additionally on requests for a four-way stop at this location and immediately to the south. Cindy, if you can go to the aerial, the one that zoomed out a little bit. You could see Stonewall on the southern section along Northeast 4th. You could see the paving difference there. That extension was created and that connection to 4th was made as part of the Paige Woodson redevelopment. And what that has created is a very long straight stretch of Stonewall from 8th to 4th. And with the JFK neighborhood being very connected via pedestrian system to Paige Woodson, it creates a bit of a conflict zone for pedestrians and vehicular traffic. So as part of this, we're working with the neighborhood for a four-way stop at 6th and 5th. We're currently circulating petitions to take it to Traffic Commission. The owners of Culture Coffee are here, as is a representative from the Alliance, which represents the Urban Renewal Authority. With that, we'd ask for your approval. There are no TEs, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Zitzow. Commissioner Pennington, this is your word, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I'm a big fan of Culture Coffee. I love their coffee, and obviously this is close to my own neighborhood. I have heard from the Neighborhood Association. I know that Ms. Davis, the president of the JFK Neighborhood Association, is here, and so my understanding is that there have been a number of community meetings, extensive outreach with the community. I did receive a letter, a very, very thorough letter of opposition from Ms. Gloria Dunlap. I did receive it yesterday. I responded to her email, and I want, if she's listening to this, I want to be very clear that we're very sensitive to her concerns. And this proposal is going to go before the City Council. So we have another 6 weeks to try to work out any of the issues that we may be facing with this. And so I'd ask Mark that you join with me and with the Alliance in visiting with her to see what else can be done to ensure that her concerns have been addressed. And so my only question though, Mark, is could you talk about the temporary nature of this? Explain that mechanism to me, because I just wasn't understanding how that works.
Absolutely. So the intent here is for this to be temporary. We understand we're asking for zoning that will be perpetual with the land. Ultimately, the Urban Renewal Authority owns the majority of this block on the east side. So with this, we purposefully restricted the size. We've tried to heavily restrict the uses applicable to Culture Coffee, and it's going to be constructed with materials that are temporary in nature, because as part of the neighborhood, and I think the JFK Neighborhood Association would love to see more residential come to this area. So we're doing everything we can to show that the intent here is not a 40-year food truck park. It's not even really large enough to be that. So we're doing that through some of the language that was in here, but also the materials that are going to be used.
Gotcha. Thank you. I think I'm ready to hear any comments that
Okay,
others
I just
may
have one person sign up to speak, and it's in support of the application according to the note. But if, and forgive me if I mispronounce the last name again, it's not intentional. Walter Jacques? Am I 1 for 1 or 2 for 2 or 1 for 2?
Close enough for government work, as I say.
Okay, all right.
Hey, Walter Jacks, 4832 Kells Drive. I'm a life member of the Neighborhood Association in JFK, past vice president. We had a neighborhood association meeting hosted by Ms. Davis, who's in the back, and it was also attended by about 20 neighborhood association residents, and also the nice folks from Culture Coffee were there, and the developers. And of about 20 neighbors who were in attendance at the meeting, they were unanimously in support of this development.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for letting us know that. We appreciate that. Usually if 20 neighbors are attending a meeting, that's not why. So, win. Okay. That's the only person I have signed up. Is there anybody else that would like to be heard on this item today? All right, fair enough. If there's no further discussion, unless there's other comments from commissioners, I think we're ready for your motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of SPUD 1375 to City Council.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1375. It's been seconded by Commissioner Highsmith. Please cast your votes. 1, 2, 3. All votes should be cast. Who? Commissioner Powers? Oh. How do you vote, ma'am? I did. Oh. Excellent. That item is recommended for approval. Next item on our agenda is item 15.
This is SPUD 1376, application to rezone 17925 North Pennsylvania Avenue from PUD 1138.
David Box, 522 Concord Drive. This is an SPUD application that would permit a caliber collision shop at 178th and Penn. It's off the hard corner. We believe it to be consistent, compatible with the nature of the area. That area is becoming heavily commercialized outside of what is out there with the R1 single-family neighborhoods. There are no technical evaluations. We'd ask for your approval.
Okay, appreciate that. This is in my ward, so I'll make just a couple comments. I did not receive any outreach from anyone on this one. Mr. Box will recall we had one for caliber collision at basically 122nd and Penn that was heavily negotiated because of its adjacency to an apartment complex. I looked at this application pretty carefully. It's coming out of PUD 1138, which was approved in 2006, which was a C3 development. So the area to the west is ultimately going to develop commercially. The area to the north is vacant at present, and the distance between the homes that back up to I don't know if it's Maria Drive. Do you know what that distance is by chance? I don't know what you do. It's not close.
A couple hundred feet.
I was about to say, I think the staff report said something like 250 feet, but I couldn't put my fingers on it at the moment. It is 250 feet. So at any rate, I don't have any real concerns over this. I've seen these things go in. They do a nice job. It's restricted. The use unit at issue is restricted to an automotive body shop, same language we saw last time. So I don't really have any concerns. If other commissioners do, I'd love to hear them. And if not, I'll ask if there's anybody who wants to be heard today on item 15, SPUD 1376. Okay, I didn't think so. Any other comments from commissioners on this? Okay. If there's no discussion, I can't make the motion, but if I could, I'd recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1376.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of SPUD 1376 to City Council.
I have a motion to recommend approval on SPUD 1376. It's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast, and that item is recommended for approval.
Thank you.
Item 16 was continued until February the 24th. So our next item on today's agenda is item 17.
This is SP 559, application to operate a funeral and interment services use in the I-2 zone with AE1 Airport Environs Zone overlay. And it's located at 4201 Southwest 119th Street.
Once again, David Box, 522 Concord Drive. On behalf of the applicant, this is a special permit application in an area that's zoned I-2 that would allow for a cemetery as well as a small chapel and similar type items. Much like what we always do, the first meeting we had was with the airport director because it is in close proximity to the airport. I was fairly confident that this was a use that the airport would much like. It's not going to invite a large congregation of people. They were generally not objectionable to this. There is a TE that I would ask to revise to some language that I did work through with Amy Douglas, who is counsel for the airports now. So, Mr. Chair, if you will permit me, I will read that into the record and ask to substitute the TE you see in your staff report with what I'm about to read. No modifications can be made to the existing ponds that would increase their size or the normal water surface elevation or normal pool surface area, and no new retention pond shall be permitted. Ponds shall be permitted to be removed by way of being filled in on-site with earthen materials. No new retention pond shall be permitted. Any new ponds shall be detention only. And again, that was submitted to the airport director through municipal counselor's office and was received with approval.
Okay, we will take that as being read into the record, which would amend TE1, just for the purposes of clarification for my fellow commissioners. This is a special permit application, obviously. Commissioner Coffey, this is your ward, ma'am. Do you have questions for the applicant?
No, I have no questions. I think the new language is appropriate. I have not received any comments from the neighborhood community. I believe this is appropriate.
Okay, is there anybody here that wants to be heard on SP 559? Doesn't look like it. Okay. If there's no further discussion from commissioners, I think we'll take a motion, Commissioner Coffey.
I move approval of SP 559.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on SP 559, subject to the amended technical evaluation as read into the record by the applicant's representative, Mr. David Box. That motion has been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes when available. All votes should be cast.
Thank you.
And that item is recommended for approval. Next item on the agenda is item 18.
This is SP 560, application to permit a high-impact institutional use in the AA district located at 1615 Southwest 96th Street.
Applicant with us? Go ahead and come up and give us your name and address for the record and tell us what we need to know.
Pastor Rick Carter, 2424 Southwest 135th Street, in Mr. Hinkle's district there.
Okay. Could you do me a huge favor and pull that microphone? There you go. You got it right there, I guarantee you.
No problem.
There we go. Tell us about the application.
So what we're looking to do, this is a facility that was originally built in the early 80s. It's been a church since that time. It was built by Kings Park Baptist Church. It was built to be a Christian school. The original intention was designed that way. We have a Christian school, and we're about 3 miles from this location on Southwestern at 12400 Southwestern. We also have a Bible college that we've never had any type of dormitory space for. So what we'd like to do is to move our school into this facility. It has been in use as a church. It had a gym. They basically had a gymatorium there for however long. So we want to remodel some of the classrooms into dorm-style rooms and move the academy, the school academy over there as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hinkle, this is your ward. Do you have questions or concerns on this one?
No, this is a great use for this building and this street. I mean, it fit in well.
Okay, excellent. I don't have anybody signed up. Is there anybody who would like to be heard on SP 560? Seeing none, if there's no further questions or comments from commissioners, I couldn't agree more. It seems like we're going to use an existing building for something new and bring people to it. So good for you guys. If you want to make your motion, I think we'll take it.
I find the words high impact and Bible college put together is kind of odd, but there's no technical evaluation, so I'll move approval on SP 560.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on SP 560. It's been seconded by Commissioner Coffey. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that item is recommended for approval. Good luck with your project. Yep. Next item on the agenda today is item number 19.
This is PUD 1876, application to rezone 13,000 Southwest 15th Street from PUD 1774.
Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll, 300 Point Parkway Boulevard, represent the applicant. This is a 157-acre tract that sits at the southwest corner, obviously, of 15th and Cemetery Road. This property was actually rezoned into its current PUD back in, I think, July of 2020. So the current PUD has the exact same two tracts that you see on your screen. Tract 1 is 33 acres and it allows for duplexes. The balance of the site is 124 acres and it allows for single family. It's the base zoning of RA, so it allows for half-acre lots with water and obviously private sewer systems. Since that project or that zoning was approved, well, at the time it was approved, the sanitary sewer line, the nearest one to the south, was about 3 miles away. It's about 2 miles now, in fact, just right at 2 miles, which is still well outside your subdivision regulations. But my client would like to attempt to get an alignment and the right-of-ways to extend that sewer to this tract. So it's a pretty good undertaking. Obviously, we've got a lot of property owners that we'd have to work with and some different constraints. Before we embark on that adventure, we'd like to make sure that we have some entitlements to develop it in a manner that we could afford to put in that sewer. So the intent of this PUD is to duplicate the current PUD with the exception in Tract 2, we'd like to add the use of just having R1 single-family homes. So that's the only difference between the current PUD and the PUD that's before you today. Something else I might mention, if you notice in the lower left-hand side, you'll see PUD 1833. That's a PUD that come in just last year. That is a PUD that allows for R1 single-family as well. This obviously conforms to your comp plan. Staff recommends approval. There's 2 TEs that we agree with, and we'd ask for your approval.
I appreciate it, Mr. Dillon. Thank you for that summary. Just a couple things. Again, I just want to point out we received a number of emails post the staff report being printed. A lot of those emails expressed, frustration about the deadline and not being included. So I'm really reading these to intention to show that we still get them. I want people in the public to know we still get them. We still read them. And so in this case, here are the emails that I received, protest emails from, and again, if I mispronounce your name, it is not intentional, forgive me. D'Angela Windler, Donna Quisenberry, Paula Liberton, Don Bankston, Gerald Haas, Karen Dare, and Angela Boulware, I'm not sure which one that is. But received all those, I read them. One thing that stood out to me is there was a lot of discussion about multifamily or concern about apartments in almost every one of these protest emails. The other one was traffic, which again, that's kind of like drainage and plats. We hear it with about every application. We understand that concern. But I will just tell you, multifamily is not allowed here. In the Tract 1 that's presented on the screen, what's allowed there is R2, which is duplexes. So it's two-family, normal residential style construction, correct?
That's correct.
Yep. So, and that was approved in your previous application,
That's exactly
correct?
right.
Correct. Okay. Commissioner Coffey, this is your ward, ma'am. I just wanted to clarify that for those folks who wrote in. Do you have any comments or concerns for the applicant? And I do, just so you know, have at least one person who signed up to speak.
I think most of my questions have been addressed in my conversation with the applicant's representative. I too have received those emails and have read through them carefully. I do not have additional concerns that have not been addressed by those who have written in their emails. Would be happy to hear what is presented by the person who is in attendance.
Okay, I'll call them up at this time. Gerald Haas, are you with us today? Still. Welcome, sir. Be sure and give us your name and address for the record, and then whatever you'd like to tell us.
My name is Gerald Haas. My address is 13125 Southwest 47th Street in Mustang. I also own a property adjoining this in the extreme southeast on the other side of Cemetery Road. So it's not just, it's a business. We've lived there. The business has been there for 10 years. And we have struggled with the traffic problem on Cemetery Road for years. The road is 55 miles an hour. It has no shoulders, no stop signs, and they're going to dump another 1,000 cars out there on that road, on that intersection. Now, I don't know how it's going to handle it. Right now, you can drive through there, and it's like you're a moving target because you better be ready to stop. Somebody's going to pull right out in front of you at 15th and Cemetery Road. Of all the traffic coming in there, the traffic counts that I looked up just north of there was 15,000 per day. And Mustang Road, which is 4-lane with stoplights, is 19,000, and those numbers were established in 21. So it's fairly current. It continues to increase, and here we come along and put these little bitty houses, cram them all in there, and expect traffic to flow at a normal rate. The least we need to do is do a traffic study. There's not been, I didn't hear anything about the plans for Highway 4. There's none been mentioned to this point. I think that's the least we can do to see what their plans are there, because it really realistically needs to be 4 lanes through there. Like I said, traffic count shows that with the flow of traffic on Mustang Road versus Highway 9 or Cemetery Road. And it's just wide open out there. There's no stop signs between 59th Street and Reno. And like I said, 55 miles an hour, you've got, and the other concern I've got with it is they're dumping traffic directly onto Reno. I mean, if you had a stop sign or a stoplight at Reno and 15th, you could put all that traffic onto 15th first and then out there. It would be a lot safer. And I just don't want to be involved in a wreck there. I don't want any of my kids to be involved in a wreck there. There was just one just down the road yesterday afternoon at 1. I believe a 3 or 4 car crash, turned over cars. We experience one per week on that road. So my question is, why can't we get an answer from the Department of Transportation as far as what their plans are and traffic control? The staff reports here did a good job on everything else in your summary, but when it came time to traffic control, they just put an asterisk there. I don't know what the asterisk means.
It means they have no comment. So they didn't have a comment associated with it.
I can give them a comment.
We clearly, we've got them. Yes, understood. I mean,
Okay.
well, I understand your position for sure.
Well, that's my biggest complaint.
Yeah.
Biggest concern is traffic.
Yep.
And congestion.
I will, and I apologize to you that I did not get this information ahead of time, but I'll ask staff, and I should have looked it up, and Commissioner Hinkle is usually pretty good about getting this to me in short order if I ask this question. But I'm curious if there are any improvements planned. Currently within the bond issue now? Yeah. So here's the best thing I can tell you. I'm just going to be really candid with you, Mr. Haas. I'm supportive of this application for one reason and one reason only. We previously approved it. We approved it for larger lots. To me, it's a major win for the people in this area long-term that we don't have aerobic sewer systems. While that would still technically be allowed here, there's at least the opportunity for them to connect to city sewer and water systems, which are a vast improvement over that. We have a problem, in my view, that the city's working on a fix on or for, which is that DEQ allows for half-acre, the Department of Environmental Quality for the state allows for half-acre lots to be served by aerobic sewer systems. We believe that's a major problem. As it stands, though, we've asked for the City Council to consider, as a part of the code revamp, increasing the size of those lots so that we don't have to deal with that issue in here anymore. And allowing Mr. Dillon and his client to do what they're asking to do at least provides the opportunity for them to connect to services, which is of much greater concern to me. You have a big thing going for you. Cemetery Road becomes Garth Brooks Boulevard, connects to I-40, goes all the way down. It becomes State Highway 4. I would encourage you to reach out to Barbara Young, your city council person for Ward 3, and speak to Ms. Young about your concern. There are opportunities for roads to get funding. I wouldn't normally say this to anybody, but this sure seems like a good candidate to get advanced with the right kind of people involved in that process because of its critical infrastructure nature. It's also a state highway, so there's probably some complications there in working with the state. I don't know that, but those are things that I definitely would encourage you to continue to make outreach on. It's not going to impact my vote today. Other commissioners can speak for themselves, but that's how I come down on it. So I understand it's a problem. It's a problem in my ward in a lot of places, a major problem. I know it's a major problem in a lot of places in Ward 3 as well. Any other commissioners have comments?
To add to that point, one of the quickest ways to add people to your side is to add more people to this area. With these houses, you're going to find that you're going to have a lot of people on your side ready for those improvements as well.
Yeah, these small yards, though, these small houses that are cramming in there, they don't have to be that small.
Well, they're
they
in
can
line
charge
with
more money for it.
Understood. What they're ultimately going to do as a part of the rezoning, which is important to understand, is they can do it within R1. So they're going to have to comply with our code, which our current code is 6,000 square feet, which is what your application stipulates you're going to comply with. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So those 6,000 square foot lots, that's what's allowed by R1. Anytime somebody builds or pulls an R1 building permit, they can put it on a 6,000 square foot lot. So that's in line.
So right now, we're waiting on the sewer system to be brought up into the area. Is that correct?
That's correct. And they're doing that in the event that they can't. They're basically maintaining the zoning that they got a little less than 2 years ago, which allowed them to develop under RA, so they could have smaller lots, or I'm sorry, larger lots.
Did that include the entire tract 1 and 2?
It included the entire tract 2.
And tract 1 has always been?
Correct. It's always been the way it's stipulated in our record here, which is R2. Correct, Mr. Dillon?
That's correct.
What kind of entrance and exits were going to be?
It's done this is an exhibit. It's not something that they have to adhere to, but do you want to?
This is obviously just a conceptual plan for the master development, but you can see on this concept, we have 2 access on 115th Street and 1 on Cemetery, or 2 on Cemetery Road, the glare. Obviously, this application, if we're successful, will come in with a preliminary plat and we can discuss the access points, but I suspect it'll look very similar to that, unless we're successful on getting the sewer line, which we would come in with a whole new preliminary plat.
And Mr. House, you would be noticed again publicly. If you received notice the first time, you would receive notice again when that plat is filed.
Well, I know I can give you some advice as far as trying to get in and on and off Cemetery Road from that street with a driveway. And I don't see anything exotic about your entrances on Cemetery Road, but I've sat there for 10 minutes waiting for it to clear just so I can get out. Now, I don't know how 300 houses are going to be doing the same thing. So it needs to go up to 15th Street and not Cemetery Road.
Well, we have access to 15th Street, like I said, and one thing I might mention too, a little bit to Commissioner Highsmith, not only this development, but the other developments, part of how we decided to mitigate these issues with traffic a few years ago was we implemented a traffic impact fee. So these developments, in fact, I looked at if it were to develop like that, it's in the neighborhood of $400,000 to $500,000 that it would generate just in impact fees, which might not make the left turn lanes, but that would pay for the signals. That obviously goes to a pot that the city of Oklahoma City gets to use, as well as all the other neighborhoods that are connect on to Cemetery Road, and then Oklahoma City gets to figure out what's priority as far as which intersections. So we are mitigating for our addition to the traffic.
And Mr. Ross, that's another reason why I'm encouraging you to reach out to your city council person and let them know of your concerns in the area because of things like development impact fees that can be reallocated by city council financially. Yeah. So thank you for coming down today and sharing your concerns with us a lot. We do appreciate it. Any other questions from commissioners on this? Okay. Commissioner Coffey, do you have other questions, ma'am?
No, I do not.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, I think we can take a motion. I don't have anybody else signed up. Is there anybody else that wanted to be heard who submitted a letter? Yes, ma'am. If you came all this way and sat on that bench all this time, I want to hear from you. Yeah.
First of all, we didn't receive.
Name and address, please.
Oh, sorry. Carla Haas,
Thank you.
13125 Southwest 47th.
Appreciate it, Mrs. Haas. Thank you.
Mustang, okay. We only received notification about a month before, so we didn't have a whole lot of time to go in and do a lot of, looking into how many car accidents have happened at your particular location or the traffic, but I was able to get a hold of a Sergeant Master LaRousse, and he sent me the number of car accidents with injuries and without injuries for 1 year. And it was 26, and that was 1 year. And that was from I-40 to Southwest 15th. So in that time, and that's a lot of accidents. When you bring in, and like Mr. Haas said, 14,000 people from South I-40 to Southwest 15th is a lot of people. So to come in and increase the number of people on that corner without any provisions for change in traffic, no lights, no change lanes, nothing. You are asking for it, and every one of you are going to be responsible for that person that dies or that child that dies.
Thank you, Ms. Haas. We appreciate your comments.
I mean, I know what you're after. You're after the future, but we're after the lives of these people today. And you're increasing it by doing duplexes.
Yep, we understand.
So, and there was an accident right in front of our house last night. 2 people. Remember it, because it could be your family.
We understand.
And I'm serious. It needs to be tabled. At least should be not rezoned to multifamily.
Well, it's not being rezoned to multifamily.
That's what we were told. That's the notification that we received.
I understand that's what you're told, and I'm clarifying for you, ma'am, that it's not being zoned to multifamily, it's being zoned to duplexes, so it allows for two
I will show
family
you what we received.
I understand what you received. What you received is a state statutory required notice. Everybody gets the exact same notice form. We share your frustration with that notice form.
I don't think you do.
I think we do.
I don't.
Well, I'm telling you that I do.
If you saw the
I'm not going to argue
accidents.
with you. I'm not going to argue with you, but what I'm going to tell you is that we understand your frustration. We can't do anything about it. We're not the state legislature. If you have complaints, you should call your state representative and tell them that you're
Can't stop this rezoning from half-acre to duplexes.
Well, you're not asking me about the zoning. You're asking me about the notice.
I am asking you about stopping the rezoning from the half-acre
We're gonna-
to the duplex area, from track 2 to track 1.
The zoning for the duplexes was previously zoned at a hearing before this body that then went to city council and was also
We weren't
approved.
notified.
I understand. At the end of the day, we're going to vote on this today, and we're going to make a recommendation to city council. And as I told Mr. Haas, if you have concerns about that, you should contact Barbara Young. She is your city council person. You should share those concerns with her. It will be 6 weeks at a minimum before this item is heard before that body.
Exactly.
And at that point, you can visit with them.
You know, what you're telling me is moot. You know, there's nothing going to happen. They will build, and we will be faced with it. And I want you guys to remember that, okay? Because I will send you, each of you,
Appreciate that.
notifications with these accidents and people that have died.
Understood. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that wants to be heard on item 19 today, which is PUD 1876? Okay. Seeing none, if there's no further discussion from commissioners, we will take a motion. If you're ready to make it, Commissioner Coffey.
Thank you, and I really do appreciate both of you coming before us, and we really do understand your frustrations, and we share those frustrations with you. That being said, I do recommend that we forward PUD 1876 to City Council, and I so move.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on PUD 1876, which is subject to 2 technical evaluations.
Yes.
Okay. And so I'll take the second on prime. It's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that item is recommended for approval. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item 20. Mr. Butler.
This is case PUD 1877, application to rezone 9717 South 29th Street from or excuse me, 1128.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Concord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. The application before you is for a PUD that would allow for a small bit of commercial and some townhomes. Cindy, could you go back one slide to the exhibit? There you go. So the site is currently zoned PUD 1128. Why I think that's important is currently you have a developed neighborhood to the north and to the east. I saw some emails that came in yesterday and today, and under PUD 1128, it is C3 with very few limitations that you can probably guess based upon the age of the PUD. So in my opinion, what we're doing through this PUD is essentially a down zone. Cindy, do you mind displaying the... what we are doing is removing commercial right up against single family and putting a townhome. Now we are retaining the ability to have a small bit of commercial in tract 1, but of course that would not be adjacent to the single family. It would be buffered. So what we're asking for is what I believe to be fairly traditional way of going from an intense commercial corner to ultimately single family. So we go from the commercial corner, which is already developed with the gas station, to townhome, which is more dense than single family, and then ultimately end up at single family. So if you look at the site plan, it's also important to note that these are oriented north and south. Some of the neighbors had some concerns about heights and the proximity to their backyards. Those are, for the most part, I think, handled in the technical evaluations, all of which we agree to. So in the technical evaluations you see in TE3, we have a max height in tract 2 of 35 feet. We have a 15-foot setback along the north and the east, and we have a 10-foot landscape buffer within that. So along the north and the east, you will have a 15-foot setback, and within that 15-foot, 10 of it will be contained in a landscape buffer. Additionally, because these are oriented north and south, it's more of a side yard than a backyard or front yard looking in. The concern I read in the email was crime. I don't perceive townhomes to have some sort of magic crime creation. Frankly, if you think about what all could be allowed under C3 with restaurants and intense commercial uses, it's likely going to be the back of house if this were developed under its current zoning. Back of house is where dumpsters, grease traps, and all of the things that you don't want the public to see are located. That's what the neighbors would face if developed under its current zoning. We believe this to be a down zone. We believe this to be more compatible than, frankly, what is allowed today, especially considering we're going to agree to all of the TEs. Now, as it relates to TE1, it says specify when and what type of technique a westward connection to Morgan will be provided. What our civil engineer has said is we can agree that a westward connection will be made in phase 1 or an acceptable turnaround for emergency services will be provided. So that's the language I would ask that we would add in TE1, and again, we agree to all the other TEs.
Would you say that language one more time?
Yes, sir. Westward connection will be made in phase 1 or an acceptable turnaround for emergency services will be provided.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Coffey, this is your ward, ma'am. Before I ask you if you have any questions, I just want to make the point that we did receive some items that were not in our packet, but were emailed and were received. I read them. I'm sure you did too, Commissioner Coffey, as did other commissioners. And again, if I mispronounce your name, it's not intentional. Laura Koninger, Lori Cable, Jillian Yates, Sasha Martin, Scott Brand, Rocky and Kathy Falkenberry, and Twyla Steuben. I did receive all those letters. I read them, the emails, I read them. So if you submitted them, I got them and read them. I'm sure other people did too. So wanted to make sure you knew that we got them since they were submitted and not included in the packets. And with that, Commissioner Coffey, I'll let you ask questions of the applicant.
Yes, I have received those and have read through those. I think most of those from those individuals living in the addition to the east and northeast. Did receive a couple of phone calls late morning regarding the commercial aspect, hoping for a nice restaurant in that area.
Sure.
And you assured me that would be considered. That area is kind of short on nice eating establishments, so I support those suggestions, and I do not have other questions in that regard.
Before I ask for folks who'd be heard, I have a couple things for you on this, Mr. Box. Just while that exhibit that's on the screen now is up, that's why I'm going to ask him now. In your tract 1, you allow for eating establishments, drive-in, and eating establishments, fast food with a drive-through order window. Can we limit that to 150 feet from what would be your, if any residential developed area occurs in tract 1? I just don't want to put a drive-through speaker at somebody's back door if we wound up approving.
If within tract 1.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So 150 feet from any residential use
Within tract 1.
within tract 1?
Yes.
Right. Okay, so that would be a TE. I just would hate for that to be the outcome, depending on what we do here. The other question I have on this is how many units are you proposing for the townhomes, aside from what's being displayed on just a mock-up drawing? What is the number of units that are being contemplated here that would be allowed?
So we don't have a number yet. We don't know what that number could be.
What would be allowed by code? Do you have any idea?
I don't. I mean, I think the number is somewhere around 80 is what we have contemplated.
34 dwelling units per acre is what we would be approving. Is that, I'm just being submitted to me by staff.
Now, we do limit it to townhomes. The multifamily residential is limited to townhomes. We limit it to 35 feet, so I struggle to see how we could achieve 34 an acre. We can limit it to 80 if that is acceptable.
It at least gives us a discussion point. It was fairly open-ended. I wanted to make sure my fellow commissioners and the folks that are here have something to grab a hold of in terms of what exactly is going to appear, because we try to make this point to people all the time. All you're being shown here is an exhibit. It is not what's going to be required to be built, and so that's why we have to negotiate the exact language that's ultimately included in the PUD. So we just use 80 as a reference point for the moment. The other thing that I had was, so the base zoning district shall regulate the dumpster requirements. Again, if part of it builds up as commercial, we would need some separation. You have the land mass to do 50 feet from a residential use. That would be my request.
In tract 1, I'm not. Hold a moment.
Technology. While he's looking for that information, those are the only real comments I had. Did anybody else have anything else they wanted to add? Okay. So.
I have a question, I guess. If the applicant is agreeing to limitation of driveways on Southwest 29th to 1, I'm assuming that 1 would be what's shown here as the easternmost sort of street, and that the access then to whatever commercial use
Be shared.
might develop there would come off of that street.
Correct, it'd be shared. And then we also, of course, will have a connection point to Morgan. We can agree to 50 foot on the dumpster.
Okay. So 50 feet on the dumpster, 150 feet from a residential use within tract 1 for 8300.34 and 8300.36. Any other comments? Okay.
Well, 3.5, so as long as we say an audible speaker, the 8300.35 does not contemplate.
I said 3.6.
Okay,
If I said
3.6.
3.5, I meant 3.6.
Okay.
So 0.34 and 0.36 are the ones that allow for the speaker or the order window. That's what I'm concerned about.
Got it.
So, okay. I do have a few people signed up to speak, so I'll call on those folks now. The first person I have signed up is Debbie Blakely. Ms. Blakely, are you with us? Please start out by giving us your name and address for the record, ma'am.
My name is Debbie Blakely. I live at 9721 Southwest 24th Terrace. I would be the second row of houses behind this addition.
Okay.
My concern is the fact that I've been, first of all, we just recently got word that this was going to happen. It's been like 2 or 3 days. So we've not, as a community, been able to really discuss it except for on Nextdoor website. My concern is that there's going to be, I was told by this young lady, at least 63 units, if not more. That is a lot of housing out that way. We're getting the feel of Edmond in here where everybody's getting crammed in. There's just already a lot of traffic. The school that's catty corner across the street, when it's time to pick up and drop off children, they have cars way down 29th, and it's a 2-lane road. I'm very concerned about the traffic. There's been an awful lot of building going up out there. There is no shoulder on those roads either. I understand what you're talking about as far as utilities and amendments. I'm also concerned about the height of the townhomes. 35 feet is pretty high. That particular area is at the top of the hill. If you're standing on the street at 29th, you can look straight across and all you see is the tops of the houses with very little. So if you put something very tall up there, you're going to have people being able to kind of look down, or it maybe subdues the light that might otherwise kind of get in there. That's basically what I'm concerned about, because someplace that I read in there said 35 feet, and then somebody did where they checked, and it said, or it may have to go higher. I would terribly, terribly hate to see 3 stories in there. That's all I have.
Okay, a couple things real quick, Ms. Blakely. I want to make sure I got all of your comments, primarily for people who follow you, but also just to make sure that you heard what was said earlier and have the information that you need. The lack of notice and needing more time, we can address that separately. When you say that you found out about it, did you actually receive public notice? Is that
I
what
did
you got?
not. I am probably farther than the 300 feet.
Yeah.
Although our community is very small, and so what affects one affects all of us.
Sure.
We're pretty crammed in there as it is. Another 63 units, at least 80, is that what he's talking about? That's going to be terrible for traffic.
Okay.
It's already pretty bad because we've had a lot of building down south of us. There's a lot of commercial trucks, heavy commercial trucks that go through there. Like I said, there's no shoulders on the road either, so.
Okay. You heard him specify 80, which you said, so you've got that. 35-foot height, that is the code allowance within R1 typically is 35 feet in height. So that's a standard building height that's limited by code. So, and he's agreed to limit that height as a restriction within the PUD. If we need to add that as a technical evaluation, we can.
Well, like I said, all I says, it did say, or it may need to be higher than that. So.
Yes, and I believe that you're saying that's what you're committing to, Mr. Box, is to fix it at 35 feet. So that would be, he would not be able to exceed that.
Because I know there's a Casey's on the corner, but it sits catty corner and it's also on the downhill slide. So it's not at the top of the hill where the townhomes would be, so.
Okay. And then the last thing, schools, that's why this is going here, that and turnpikes are why this kind of building is going on here and why the building in the area is increasing. When the Southwest Turnpike Loop came through and the schools got built, it's going to be a huge draw for residential development, and we understand that creates an issue, so we're sensitive to that. So is there anything else that I missed on there?
Nope, it's just getting pretty crowded over there, so.
Thank you, Ms. Blakely.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming down today.
It's my first time to do this, so.
Well, welcome to City Hall. We're happy to have you. Kathy Falkenberry, are you here? Yeah, come on in, please. Give us your name and address for the record, and obviously we know about the notice issues in schools, the building height, and then the concern on density. Do you have other concerns you want to share with us, ma'am?
No, I want to, Kathy Falkenberry, 2913 Fennel Road. I am actually the 5th house in off of 29th, right in my backyard.
Got it.
Something I was concerned about, everything that Debbie voiced, but also running behind our fence there is city utilities. I know for a fact the sewer goes back there because I just had to have my whole line replaced. And I'm not seeing any kind of easement or alleyway for those utilities. We also have a huge OG&E electrical box that is inside our fence, but OG&E has to have access to it.
Yes, ma'am. So when they're rezoning this now, after the rezoning is done and they want to actually make constructed improvements here, they've got other steps in the process they have to take. And those steps in the process are when things like utility reviews would be done. They'd be done by the city. They'd be done by, if ONG had a gas line there, for example, if OG&E has services in the area that would be impacted by that. And that's all going to be things that developers are going to have to take into account before they couldn't just block access to that.
Well, and going back to the notifications, we got notified 2.5 weeks ago is when we got our letters. So we did not have much time to do this. But something else, we are just totally opposed to the multi-story. We're not opposed, and people in the neighborhood have said they're not opposed to single-story homes there. It's the multi-level or multi-story homes, blocking our view, that was the one thing when we built our home from Ideal Homes, was that these were single-story homes within our neighborhood that was zoned commercial. I understand things change. But that multi-story is, that's just uncalled for.
Got it. Okay. Anything else we need?
Everything I think Debbie pretty much covered, the traffic and everything. Yeah, and the utilities. That was one thing that concerned me because I don't want them coming through my gates and having to get back there to take care of stuff.
Right. One thing I want to clarify too, or I want to have staff clarify because this is going to reach the limit of my knowledge, but this development, the way that it's being done, will not require a plat. There are additional steps. At what point would it be building permit then when they would be required to address utilities and things of that nature, provide the easements and all that? Can somebody answer that?
Yes, that is correct. So this is apartment complexes is more of a commercial development, so I would have to review the building permit when they go to build these townhomes. And at that time, we would make sure that they have proper utility access, proper easement dedications, and so forth and so on to be able to maintain the utilities in that area.
Would you mind telling Ms. Falkenberry who you are?
I'm Dustin Segrage with the utility department.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, this guy knows. Yeah.
And there was one other thing I wanted to bring up. Now I can't find it. I can't remember what it is.
Well, if you remember, you raise your hand and I'll bring you right back up.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time to come down. The last person I have signed up to speak, I believe, is Scott Brand. Come on down, Mr. Brand. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right.
Hi, my name's Scott Brand. I live at 2917 Funnel Road. Really, the only other thing I have to add is maybe the home depreciation. I'm afraid it's going to make it harder to sell our houses if we have multi-story homes right behind us. Everything else they've pretty much covered already.
Got it. Home values. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Brand. Would anybody else like to be heard on PUD 1877? Okay. Commissioners, comments, questions, concerns, thoughts?
Just to, I guess to provide maybe a little bit of answer to the people that came down today to protest this item on a couple of the specific points. We hear concerns about home value a lot, especially in cases like this where density is being added. I will tell you that we've done our research. We've tried extensively to prove that point, and we found the opposite, that generally this tends to actually raise home values. I encourage you to do your own research on this, but every finding that I've been able to uncover says the same thing. Generally, this type of development means people want to be in your area, and that desire to be in the area shows, right, that it's more likely that somebody's going to want to buy your house whenever you go to sell it. In terms of the issue of concern in your backyard, unfortunately, just like it is in the core, there's no special protections on backyard views. Your neighbor can come up right now and look over your fence if they'd like to, and that's just how it goes. There's no protection on views, and I don't know if any city does that personally. Those are two items that I specifically just wanted to quickly touch on myself. So.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Highsmith. Appreciate that. Anybody else have comments or thoughts on this one?
I just think it's important to keep in mind that this is better than the existing zoning. The existing zoning of C3 would be way more disruptive than what they're trying to do with townhomes. And the 35 feet height is standard, I'm right about that, right? 35 feet is standard for residential. So even if this place was zoned exactly like your home, they could build a house at 35 feet. So I think it's important, these are still gonna be residences. Yes, it's gonna be more dense, but this is way better than having Walmart behind you. It's way better than having all of these uses listed on page 2 of the report. I think that this is an improvement, so I'm in support. Okay?
I do think it is important too that we keep in mind that any single-family residential home can be 35 feet tall. We're talking about, multi-story buildings as though that were something distinct from other residential uses. And even though what is attached here as an exhibit is really just conceptual, it is very likely to be consistent with the way this is ultimately laid out. So what's actually going to be against these people's back fence is the side of a building, not windows overlooking their backyards necessarily. So, I do understand their concerns. I doubt that what will be constructed there will match their fears.
The one other thing I would just add that hasn't already been said is anytime an area begins to develop in a meaningful way like this has over time, the city has a policy. That policy was adopted as a part of the comprehensive plan by the city council that we encourage a diversity and a different type of housing type. So I looked at this area on an aerial, I guess it was actually yesterday. There's some apartments to the northwest of here a little ways. So this is just a natural progression as areas build out. But we encourage, as a matter of policy, a difference in housing type and style to accommodate different types of living. There were a couple of letters that, say some things that are, in my view, a bit unfortunate about, people who may or may not rent. That's not for our commission to decide or to discuss. In fact, HOAs can't even limit the ability to rent. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of HOA docs have it, but you can't preclude someone from renting their property. And we certainly don't get into those weeds in terms of whether somebody's going to rent or someone's going to own, whether they're going to live there a year or 10 years, is not something that this body engages in and as a part of our thought process. So, but I appreciate everyone's comments. There's been a lot of discussion here. I think for the purposes of clarifying the record, I'm going to read what I believe to be our current set of technical evaluations that I've written down, and then if I miss anything or there's any disagreement or confusion about that, let's discuss them. So, and that would apply to the applicant as well. So the first one, we are amending TE1 to say basically that a western connection will be required in phase 1 or an emergency turnaround for emergency services. Is that a turnaround for emergency services? Excuse me.
So, yeah, just for purpose of clarity. Westward connection will be made in phase 1 or acceptable turnaround for emergency services will be provided.
Okay, let's notate that as the record for TE1. TE2, 3, 4, and 5 were agreed to, is that correct?
Sir.
And so TE6 would be to limit building height to 35 feet?
No. That's already TE.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I missed it, my fault. Okay, so
That's in
TE6 would be tract 1 shall limit drive-through or order speakers to 150 feet of a residential use.
Right.
Within tract 1.
Within tract, that's why I said tract 1. TE7 would be to limit units to 80. That was stipulated by the applicant. And TE8 would be to limit dumpsters within tract 1, if commercially developed, to within 50 feet of any residential use.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything I missed there from Commissioner's perspective?
No, Mr. Chairman, but I do think we do have another comment from the audience as well. But let Commissioner Powers.
I'd like to ask a question. Since it seems to me that you're
Thank
making
you.
a point of this, I want to just be clear about what it is. You are wanting to limit the location of, is it specifically an outdoor speaker, 150 feet? Is that what we're limiting?
Yeah, that's the compatibility issue that,
So, but your point is that 150 feet from a residential use that is in Tract 1, not 150 feet from a residential use that's anywhere. And I wonder what is or am I putting the emphasis in the wrong place there?
I think that's what.
well, no, you're making a really good point. You're making a really good point. The intention is to limit the speaker from any
residential use?
So that would be, if, what I was trying to articulate was that if the drive-through order speaker was introduced in Tract 1, it would be limited to 150 feet of a residential use. That's the intention of the TE.
That was what I understood you to be saying, but what I understood him to be saying was 150 feet from a residential use that is located in Tract 1.
Got it.
Just the speaker, not the use itself.
Yeah, I'm not
just
concerned about the
speaker.
restaurant. I'm concerned about somebody listening to how many cups of coffee somebody's going to get at Starbucks every 5 minutes.
Hold a moment. Do we have general consensus on all the other TEs?
It doesn't appear to be that there's any discrepancy there.
Okay.
Since we have someone else who has a
Yeah,
comment, maybe
I'm
we
sorry. I forgot about that. Is there, yeah, come back up, please.
She remembered.
Hit us. There's
With
still
your-
time for TEs, so let's have them.
Okay, well, my concern also that I've had forgot about, on the municipal, like, trash pickup, is that going to be like dumpsters within that area? Are they going to have individual poly carts and all? And if it is dumpsters for the neighborhood, where are these going to be located at?
Yes, that's a great question. So according to the application, let me flip there, and I'm going to read it to you right from the application, okay? So the base zoning district would regulate dumpster requirements. That's why we're having this discussion about the commercial use, because it's developed as commercial, they would be allowed to have dumpsters. If it's developed as the residential, what would be the trash pickup requirements on the townhomes? They'd have dumpsters too, couldn't they? Couldn't they have dumpsters?
It'd be polycarts.
It'd be polycarts?
Depends on the density of it. They could be polycarts or they could be dumpsters, but it'd be, yeah. I'm not for sure.
Did you get?
No. So yes, we can agree on the speaker. The speaker will have to be 150 feet away from any residential use.
Okay, so we're just going to say any drive-through order speaker or window shall be 150 feet from any residential developed use within the PUD.
Does the window, I mean, if the concern is the
amplified
sound
speaker?
of the amplifying of the sound through a speaker, if it's a window and it's just a person, I don't think that to be a concern.
The speaker is what I'm concerned about. You agree? Okay.
Yes.
So let's go over that language one more time to make sure we've got something we have consensus on for TE6. Is that any drive-through order speaker shall be at no less than 150 feet away from any residential use.
Yes. And I did not hear the question. I was looking at my.
Well,
Concern.
sorry, Ms. Falkenberry's concern is the Tract 2 dumpsters. I think she brings up a good point there. It could be polycarts, as utility points out. It could also wind up being dumpsters, depending on the number of units. Is that right? So we would want to limit dumpsters within Tract 2 from being 50 feet from adjoining property to the east and to the north.
I'm sure that's fine. Hold on.
Because looking at this with each of those little cul-de-sacs, whatever you want to call those, if they were sitting there at the end of that's too close to the fences to our properties.
We routinely, so you know, the code requires only 25 feet. We routinely amend that to 50 feet on behalf of neighborhoods to try to pull any kind of consolidated trash use away from a fence line.
Okay.
So it's a great point. Thank you.
I've got 3 dots. Hold a moment.
We're buffering.
Your client should join you next time, which would help us expedite our discussion.
And I think we had one other issue about lighting. Do we need to include anything about possibly hooding the lighting away from the residential?
Code already requires.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't made aware of that specifically in our discussion, but the 9.7 does adopt Chapter 59, Article 12, Section 59, 12350 regarding lighting, which requires it to be, pointed away and directed inward and all that.
Good.
Yes,
Okay.
if dumpsters are utilized within Track 2, we can agree that they will be 50 feet back from any adjacent residential property line.
That will be TE9. We'll just separate those. So
Okay.
Tract 1, any commercially developed use shall require dumpsters to be 50 feet away from any residential use. TE9 will be as read into the record by the applicant. Just because of all that, are you comfortable we have a preserved record, or do we need to go through it again? Okay, I'm told that we're good. No funny business. We're going to read it, so no funny business. Okay, so we have 9 TEs, and I just wanted to state that for the record. Commissioner Coffey, this is your ward, ma'am. Do you have a motion that you'd like to make?
Yes, concerning the additional TEs, I recommend approval of PUD 1877 to City Council.
Subject to the technical evaluations as amended and added into the record in our discussion. I will accept that motion, and it's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast.
Thank you.
That application is recommended for approval. Thank you, and I appreciate all the neighbors who came down and joined us this afternoon. Next item on the agenda today is item 21, which has been continued to February the 24th. So our next item for consideration is item 22. Mr. Butler.
This is SPUD 1357, an application to rezone 1534 Northwest 3rd Street from R3 to SPUD 1357.
Hello. Fallon Brooks, 1605 North Classen Boulevard. There were a couple of technical evaluations on this one, sidewalks, number of buildings, and amending the language to say 50-foot wide. I'm fine with all that. Parking is fine. The site plan that is in the packet is not current. I don't know how that happened. This has, and my apologies to the commission because this has been continued so many times, and that's because of me. I've had some stuff going on, so I'm here finally.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you. The site plan shown shows a whole bunch of parking spaces and a really wide sort of turnaround area in the back. That's, and it had a 0-foot setback. So we changed that, and I think that what's actually in here shows 20 foot, and we wanted to request to change that to 15 because it limits the number of parking spaces that we can fit. It allows us to only have 7. Yeah, those are outdated. It allows us to only have 7, and we'd kind of like 8. It puts us over that 1.5 spaces per unit. So 15-foot setback. And then the other thing that I don't know was in there is we have there's 5 units total in this building, and it drops us to 1,400 square feet per unit. I don't know if that was addressed, so I wanted to kind of point that out. But I think that's it. Sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Highsmith, this is your ward, sir.
Yeah, we talked about this a while back. It's been since probably last year.
It was like
and I didn't reach out before this meeting because this has been continued several times, and I didn't know when we'd actually be discussing it. You're right. This plan doesn't represent at least what I saw last. I had several changes that I requested. Part of me wonders. I'm nervous, honestly, without that exhibit to move this forward today because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. There's several changes that I requested. One of those being that I do think that at least what's shown in the packet as far as the entry drive is completely insane.
I did not
to put
do
it
that.
nicely. Yeah, I can't imagine wanting to widen a drive out to almost the entire width of the lot.
Yeah.
And I asked that be changed to a much simpler and typical entry drive. I also asked that there'd be a front door facing the street that it takes frontage from, which I think is, pretty typical ask.
Commissioner Highsmith?
Yes, please.
I might suggest that you incorporate the concerns that you have into the text rather than rely on a site plan.
Sure.
If you've got a width that you're comfortable with for the driveway, if you want a front-facing doorway,
Yeah.
put those things into the TEs and go that way. I think you'll have a little more comfort level.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to incorporate those today. My only nervousness is that I feel like this question of the setback that I'm hearing is a little bit new, and I'd love to be able to consider that a little bit more, but I'll also take direction from my fellow commissioners if you guys have any thoughts or insights on that.
I'm open to a continuance if the applicant's open, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't feel like you've had time to adequately address it, we can't sit here and negotiate it. And with all due respect, I don't blame him, right? Like,
No,
for that.
I
mean,
completely agree.
So, no,
I started going through this while I was waiting for you guys, and I was just like, oh, man. I
just love to clean it up
Sure,
before,
yeah.
and just make sure we're all comfortable, if
Yeah.
that's okay.
So the next meeting would be February the 24th. Do we want to do a continuance until that day?
I mean, I guess I don't have another option. That's fine with
You,
me.
you certainly do. I don't know that you. you
Well,
like
so, what was that, Curtis? 5 TEs, well, there's only 4 on here, so. Specifically to the driveway width, the language says 12 and a half feet, and that was updated on the site plan that apparently did not make it into this. I mean, I'm willing to have the discussion. I understand the trepidation, but at this point, I mean, this was filed, I think originally in August or July.
It was, and it wasn't heard 3 times because we didn't have an applicant to
Yes,
hear it.
and that was
So we
personal.
don't. I understand
my
that, but
fault,
that's
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't change our job.
Agreed. So, well, I guess we'll just continue it, and then I can have a conversation with Asa about it.
Yeah, let's meet and talk about it. We'll get it cleaned up, and we'll get you ready for
All
the
right.
next meeting.
Okay, so that would be 2/24, February the 24th. So I'll need a motion on that.
Well, I'll move to continue this item until 2/24.
Hold on one second. February 10th? Oh, it's.
I thought we had another one.
My fault.
Even better. That's
My fault.
Yeah,
My fault.
Be 2 week.
Not intentional. Thank you. February the 10th, forgive
So
me.
we'll continue it till the next meeting. In the meantime,
Yeah,
let's meet.
awesome.
But
I'm
yes,
fine with
that's,
that.
apologies, that's my motion.
Okay, I have a motion
better.
to
I can
continue
stomach
SPUD 1357 to February the 10th, 2022. That's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. Sorry for the confusion on my part. And that continuance is approved.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you.
Next item on the agenda today is item 23.
This is case PUD 1879, application to rezone 9229 South Cimarron Road from the AA District.
Chair, I'm going to step out for one brief minute. Not a
Not a
recusal.
recusal.
Not a recusal.
Okay, so you're just stepping away for a moment. Fair enough.
Hi.
Welcome.
How you doing? Aaron
Good.
Mears, 7301 Northwest 158th. Basically, my client would like to rezone this property from AA to PUD 1879. As we stated last time, really the major revisions on this, as you can see, the access to the oil terminal south of the site is right now is currently being accessed from Southwest 89th Street. What we'd like to do is go ahead and access that from Cimarron Road. Now, I did make revisions on this access drive. We're no longer showing the T on the end. We're showing a 40-foot cul-de-sac per Oklahoma City standards. I did basically address, I emailed Miss Mary and spoke with the city, addressed the comments, both of the TEs, that the TE number 1 and TE number 2. And I do agree to that and respectfully request approval.
I just have one TE in our staff report. Am I correct in that notion?
There was one about the access drive and one about the fire suppression.
Well, you've fixed that on the record, so assuming that's why the TE was removed from our packet today, I would assume. I only have one TE, so I just want to make sure staff knows that is primarily the reason I'm bringing it up.
I think there was just one TE, but it seemed appropriate to me that we divide that into 2 TEs instead of 1.
It's one, yes, I guess you could say it's 2, it's access. It both deals with fire. So I mean, you could say it's 1.
One's for the water tank and
Okay,
then the
and
second
you're in
one-
agreement with?
Yes, I am in agreement.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here, so. Okay, any questions on this, Commissioner Coffey?
No, just I think it's appropriate to have 2 TEs instead of combining those, one for the sprinkler system, one for the turnaround. Does staff agree with that?
Do we need the turnaround anymore?
It's memorialized in the TE, and staff drafted it. I think they're comfortable with it, so we don't need to split them. But as long as the applicant is in agreement with that he's accepting it
Okay.
as a technical evaluation.
Staff's okay with it, that's all right. Okay,
They're giving the thumbs up. Even our resident utility expert
All
is
right.
giving us a thumbs up.
Been really helpful.
all right, then that's good for me.
Okay, me too, I'll be honest with you.
All right, then I recommend approval to City Council for PUD 1879.
Before that motion is seconded, I do just want to make 100% sure there's not anybody here that wants to be heard on PUD 1879, is there? Okay, so with nobody, I'll accept the motion. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. The motion's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that item is recommended for approval. There you are, sir. Good luck with your project. Next item on the agenda is item 24.
This is SPUD 1367, application to rezone 1000 Northwest 50th Street from SPUD 662.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Before you today is an SPUD for attractive land at 50th and Western. This is a piece that I think as long as I've been with Johnson & Associates, 7 or 8 years now, I feel like I've been. On the corner, there is a hideaway that has been constructed, and most recently, you all recommended approval on a credit union on the southern piece of this old SPUD 1662. This originally was done for Chesapeake back in the day. They were looking at a CNG gas station at this location. For this particular piece, if you go to the aerial, Cindy, the parking lot's been developed. Yes, that's perfect. The parking lot's been developed. A 7 to 8 foot masonry wall along our southern boundary line was already constructed. There is some landscaping in it. We'd be seeking to increase that landscaping. But there's a pad site there that has been sitting vacant for several years. The restrictive uses pretty much only allow for office to be developed. And where they are at right now is they've been approached by various retail users, one being a light drive-through use that's more of a beverage type of use. And so we took a continuance at the last meeting so we can work through some additional restrictions. So I do have just a handful of TEs that we would read in, just kind of minor clarifications to the SPUD. There's one TE which we agree with, which would make TE2 limiting the building height for non-fast food uses to 30 feet. We would add that any speaker box be located no less than 50 feet from residential uses. We would reduce the convenience store use unit to 2,500 square feet, and we would restrict the fast food with drive-through use to 3,500 square feet. And then we would add a statement to Section 6 of the SPUD that the existing masonry wall shall be maintained through construction and through the use of the property. I will note that in the SPUD, we've added some other restrictions for the speaker box and the fast food use. It does have to be located, or it cannot be located on the southern portion of the building. So one of the ways we've mitigated it, because we do not have 150 feet on this site for distance, it cannot be located on the southern side of a building. So the direction in which the speaker would be used would be away from the residential uses. So with that, be happy to answer any questions, but I believe Commissioner Powers that captured everything that's been discussed over the last couple of weeks.
What was TE4? I'm so sorry. I was trying to keep up with you, but I'm left-handed and slow-minded.
Restrict the fast food use, 1, 2, 3, 4. We would restrict the fast food with drive-through use to 3,500 square feet.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Powers, this is your ward, ma'am. Questions or comments or thoughts for the applicant?
I'm very well pleased with this application, frankly. This is a piece of property that has always been contemplated would be developed either commercially or as office. There's shared parking, there's cross-access with the corner development. There's also shared dumpster location with the corner development. There's the shared wall between this property and the property to the south, which is all residential. All of that was negotiated at great length way back when. So this is a kind of an odd little piece of property. I worked very closely with the applicant to keep it from becoming anything that could possibly ever look like a convenience store. It's not a great location for that, but I just wanted to be sure because of the shared parking and so on. There's no gasoline sales that are allowed here. And also the kind of fast food use that would be allowed here would be very limited. So, I mean, this is a great location across the street from McGinnis, but I'm very committed to the idea of 50th Street not stripping out. There are a lot of residential properties that still face 50th Street, mostly east of Chartel, between it and Broadway Extension. The residential uses that are directly east of the fire station here, which is what's on the corner there of Francis, most of those uses are still in residences, but they're office uses, and so that's just very tricky. And so they were very good about agreeing to the signage control and that sort of thing, limiting the kind of, the speakers and all that sort of thing. So I am well pleased with this application. And if there's not someone who signed up to speak on it, which I doubt very much.
I don't have anybody. Is there anyone who would like to be heard on PUD or SPUD 1367?
I'll be happy to move approval.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1367, subject to the TEs as read into the record by the applicant's representative, Mark Zitzow. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that item is recommended for approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda today is item 25.
Item 25 is case PC 10790, application to rezone 8500 Silver Crossing from O2 with AE1 Airport Environs Zone to I2.
Good afternoon. Once again, David Box, 522 Cul-De-Sac Drive. This is an I2 application. It's worth noting that you have straight I2 to the east, and if you look at that PUD 1731, that is a PUD that's not too far distant, and it is predominantly industrial in that PUD. So if you're familiar with this area, it's really behind all those big box retailers. I think there's a Home Depot, Walmart. This stretch of Silver Crossing is really warehouse and industrial type uses. So we believe it to be appropriate. Staff does recommend approval. We'd ask for the same. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. This is in Commissioner Clare's ward. He's not with us. Mr. Butler tells me that there was a staff amendment to the application that was not reflected in our packet.
It was intended to talk to the applicant about changing this to I1. Was that discussed with you, David?
No one said a word.
Okay.
We can contemplate that, I suppose, in our discussion.
It's in the staff report under the plan conformance considerations. That was planning's preference that it be I1. We didn't feel it was appropriate to be I2 across from office structures. So our request was to zone it to I1 and approve. That was what the intention was.
Well, so it is worth noting my client also owns PD 1731. They own a tremendous amount of this property. They had some multiple conversations with neighbors. No one had any concern whatsoever. Our preference would be to keep it as I2.
Okay. Other commissioners have comments? I do not have anybody signed up to speak. Other commissioners have comments or questions on this?
Would it affect your plan for the property right now?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, my client's not here because it was a clean staff report and it didn't say amend to I-1 like it always does. So I can certainly text him and try to find out, but it's I-2 next to I-2. 1731 has an I-2 base. The reason we did a PUD there is because we added some commercial uses and we had a setback to that R1 to the west. Otherwise, frankly, we probably would have come in with I-2 there. It's in an AE zone because of proximity to Wiley Post Airport. So in our opinion,
The big difference between I-1 and I-2...
Outside storage,
Yeah,
primarily.
in my understanding is the ability to have that exterior storage, right?
well, I text my client.
There are additional uses that are contemplated in I-2 that are not allowed in I-1, but the primary issue between I-1 and I-2 is usually outside storage, which I will just say, from my perspective, being adjacent to I-2 and being located on the back side, I don't know if you're familiar with Silver Spring Crossing, but you're staring at the backs of the buildings. So I don't have heartburn over it, but I'm just...
Oddly, I mean, for the fact that the proximity to Silver Spring Crossing is an issue for me. This property was always contemplated to develop as office. I could not support I-2. I'm not sure I can support I-1. I think the line that runs north-south here that divides the I-2 to the east from these office uses is a pretty hard line for me, so.
But 1731 is an I-2 PUD. I mean, that's why it's an airport environment zone. I mean, so.
I remember 1731.
Yeah.
There's that if this may refresh your recollection, Commissioner Powers. There's like a berm on the west side that's kind of notated by that sort of dotty line that's going on the west side from a northeast to southwest direction along 1731, and we had some discussion. I actually think there was a small portion along the road of Wilshire that we denoted as I-1. I'm trying to remember a little bit, but it's primarily I-2, I remember.
It's primarily I-2. Along Wilshire, we carved out some possibilities for like fast food restaurants.
That's what I was thinking. There was
Correct.
some change there, but I remember that.
And in the west, I mean, the west of Silver Crossing, we have that neighborhood. We also had a PUD in place because there's a drainage channel that runs through there, and we created a buffer that exceeds that drainage channel to stay away from the single family. So you've got I-2 next to single family here. What we're asking for here is I-2 next to I-2, next to a very large scale office building and back of house of big box retail that has outdoor storage for what it's worth. If you've ever been to a Home Depot or a Walmart, they have outdoor sales display and storage.
If you go to the other image, Cindy, you can actually see the outdoor storage area associated with that on the east side. I don't have an issue with it. Commissioner Powers does. Do other commissioners have thoughts or comments they want to share on it? We can just kind of see where we are if you guys want to. I don't have anybody signed to speak. I guess I should be careful. Is there anybody who wants to be heard on PC 10790 today?
I'm fine with I-2 as long as it's on this side of the street. I definitely see Commissioner Powers' point about wanting to have a line of delineation between, where the intense industrial stops. But I think the fact that 1731 already has that industrial base also allows me to feel comfortable with it. So.
Okay, that's one person. Anybody else have thoughts? Commissioner Hinkle, you echo his comments? Okay.
I guess for me, it's just, if his client doesn't have heartburn over I-1.
He does.
He does.
Yeah, and so does
he wants the exterior storage.
Well, it's all that comes with his engineer and him have both just texted me that we can't agree to I-1.
I don't know. I mean, like, I personally, I'm a little bit on the fence. I don't see the problem with I get the idea behind, right, the lowering of the uses is what we talk about all the time, compatibility between one and another. I hear everybody. I'm not that familiar with this area. I did not drive this particular, property for this item. I guess I'm going to rely on my fellow commissioners on this one, but to me, it doesn't seem like a big ask to go from I-2 to I-1.
I mean, there are uses that get
There are additional
eliminated.
uses. I don't remember what
And-
they are, but.
And again, it's out there, right? But what we're really talking about is the stuff behind the back of house of large, big box retailers. So this is not an area that is anywhere near single family. Frankly, the PUD 1731 allows the industrial next to them with the buffer. So this is not an area that I'm surprised we're even having this conversation.
Let's just kind of see where we are. I mean, we got mixed emotions, I can tell. So somebody make a motion and let's see where we are. Because there's nobody who wants to be heard. We know what the issue is, so let's make a motion and see what happens.
I move to recommend approval to City Council of PC 10790.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on PC 10790. That motion, waiting for a second.
There's no second.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Highsmith. So motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on PC 10790. Please cast your votes. And that item is recommended for approval.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda today is item 26.
This is SPUD 1377. Application to rezone 1629 Northwest 12th Street from SPUD 1228.
Jeff Struble, 1111 Northwest 15th Street. We have an existing SPUD that is R4. We had 3 buildings on the site. We're wanting to move to 1 building up front with parking in the back. We have some property across the street that were rezoned for the same zoning with office and retail, and that went over really well. So we thought it would be appropriate to try it, to do that across the street. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm open for questions and comments.
Okay. Commissioner Highsmith, this is your ward, sir. I will point out that this is the first item we've had today that's been recommended for denial by staff. We did also receive a protest email on this from Taylor. Again, forgive me if this isn't correct, but Coons. So with that, I'll turn it over to you for questions of the applicants.
And on that too, I'm sorry, I did talk to them yesterday and I was really surprised. They were in favor of this and then they sent in a denial. So I was really kind of surprised that happened, because that's not, yesterday evening, they thought this was a good idea. So because I did talk to the applicant along with the neighborhood president, and everybody was for it last night. So I was kind of surprised.
Okay.
But
we discussed the item. I did tell Mr. Struble that, this seemed a little bit too far for me in terms of the use. I asked him to meet with the neighbors and confirm that, first that they were okay before I would, consider it further. To me, I was happy to recommend the approval on the previous SPUD. I think Blackwelder is of a different character than these east-west streets. I do think that, there's history on streets like Blackwelder of this level of commercial activity, but there's not really on streets like 12th. This one just, it's difficult for me, and I'm, I find it tough to go against staff's recommendation here. I think what would have been more appropriate was for the commercial in this particular SPUD to be on Blackwelder in the streets, or the homes that are currently already under construction on the east side of the SPUD being on instead, basically flip these uses. I think Jeff agreed with me on that, but they've already begun that work, and it's, there's kind of no turning back now, and that's the reason for the SPUD request here today. I understand that, but, to me, this just goes a little bit too far, a little bit too fast, I think. And so if there was some way to, to find mitigating ways to make this a little bit softer, I think I would consider it. I think I would consider live work here. I think that's more appropriate use of kind of like, softly stepping up. The types of density and I guess intensity of use, but for now, this one's probably a little bit too tough for me. That's where I'm at, but I would still love to hear if there's anybody that's here today to speak on it. Their comments are comments of my commissioner.
I don't have anybody signed up, but I'll certainly be happy to ask the question if there's anybody that would like to be heard on SPUD 1377. Okay. Hearing none, other commissioners have thoughts or comments on this?
And I'm prepared to take out the retail use and just do the live work. I think that would go fine there also. We just had such a good response on the other building that we thought, hey, this is, and then in the Plaza District, in that neighborhood area, we had just, people love that. So that's kind of what we were going towards. It dead ends into the park. So we kind of thought that'd be a neat addition, but we're fine with taking that use out if that would help us.
What would the impact be on the parking at that point? Because that's my issue. I just think it's the layout with the parking lot there. I just can't imagine how disruptive that is to the people, the houses that are right around there. It seems awkward given how far in to 12th this property is. And so that's my concern. I just wish that there was a way to make this footprint less disruptive. I'm looking at Commissioner Highsmith because you are more creative than me and know how to lay out things.
Sure. For me, the parking lot itself wasn't necessarily a hurdle for me. I understand, but based on what's already surrounding it and the fact that the applicant is also the developer of the homes, it's his own backyard.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they feel confident that those homes will sell, and in that case, to me, this isn't necessarily inappropriate. I'd love to hear what my fellow commissioners think.
And there is a parking lot across the street for the other building, so that's already, just right across the street too. But I'm hoping to.
I tend to agree that this is, as presented, is just a bridge too far. The introduction of, really hard commercial along 12th is not a direction I think we ought to go here. I actually would be okay, I think, with the idea of the removal of the retail and keeping the live work. I think that makes sense to me.
I think I agree, especially for the direction of this area. I think we're all pleased to see redevelopment. I think the area is on a great trajectory. I think it's kind of ideally developing as this midpoint between a midtown and just a kind of a more typical residential area where people can kind of have their cake and eat it too. And I think that's a good thing. But I think with the introduction of, I know it was only a single protest, but it was a protest letter, that to me kind of puts me on the other side of it in terms of the retail. Since the applicant's willing to remove that, again, and the fact that at least I don't have any trouble personally with the character of the parking or what's in the SPUD in regards to that, I'd look to any other comments from my fellow commissioners before we might.
Can we hear from staff also about all of that, about the changes? Taking out the retail, all of it.
Yeah, so the retail, I think that gets at a lot of what the big concern was, the removal of the retail. It also adds the administrative and professional office use, this new PUD does. Maybe Sarah can speak to some of these others. I know there are several other details, some of which don't concern me all that much, but Sarah, were there some that you felt like were?
Well, to be clear, yeah, it would be my intent to actually strike both of the professional office and retail sales and services and just keep the live work. Are you in agreement with that as well?
I can live with that, yes. Yeah, that makes.
Sarah Welch, Planning Department. We need to get you the definition of live work because I want to make sure he understands what he's agreeing to. It might mean that the person who lives upstairs has to own what's downstairs. So that part we'll get back to you on. From staff's perspective, we had a really hard time getting to a non-residential use in this mid-block residential street location, and so with Mr. Struble, we just spoke about having you as the commission discuss that, and if you're in favor of non-residential uses, then we probably have to talk about the scale. We didn't talk about setback in our comments in this staff report because they were already decided in the last staff report with the multifamily. But you can see where that setback is consistent with his new homes on the west side, but would be pretty forward of that home to the east. And so, and then potentially addressing a parking requirement, maybe reduced for the non-residential uses and not having to meet what code requires, as well as potentially setting a maximum building size, because it's just a different arrangement. His current SBUD allows 3 9,000 square foot buildings. This would be, I think, 15 or 16,000, but it's just a different feel on that residential street. So those are some of the kind of the building scale issues. Oh, and then the building height is requested to go up to 40 feet, which is currently set at 35.
I think those are all good points, Jeff.
Yeah, the scale of the building kind of matches what's across the street. I'm like to, get this passed. I'm willing to work with you guys on a few things. The setbacks was already there in place. I'm open to adjust some things, definitely, if that makes the council.
Well, would you be okay with us reducing that building height to 35?
I could, with not doing the commercial downstairs, that would be fine, yeah.
Do you understand the definition of the live-work unit?
Well, let's give it the definition of the live-work then.
The definition of live-work units are a structure or a part of a structure combining a residential living space with an integrated workspace principally used by the resident of the structure. So it wouldn't necessarily be kind of like what's on Blackwelder to the southwest. Have you seen? They did a great job on that building. It's got 5 suites down below, and and obviously this is much more consistent with what, if it were on, like Asa said, I think if we could have just flip-flopped them, it would have been perfect to kind of mirror what's on the south side of Blackwelder. And so anyway, I'm not sure, Jeff, I just don't know if you want to agree to the live-work unit definition.
And that's what we did on Blackwelder. Those are
Okay.
live-work.
Oh,
They
okay.
turned all into just retail, because that's what was kind of people wanted, which rented out really quickly. But yeah, no, that makes sense, and I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Well, real quick, Jeff, do you have any thoughts or comments on live work?
No, I don't have any additional concerns. I think, because when that comes in, they would look at the units themselves and make sure there was kind of connection between the commercial space or the workspace and the residential unit. So as long as you're good with that,
Yeah,
that's great. And we clarified the office is also being removed. And I didn't, as far as the other concerns, you have them before you. Nothing jumps out to me as being especially, there are several changes to the original PUD. Are any, I guess the question is removing the retail in the office, does that change any of these specs that we have in here? Like, for example, the signage, the lot coverage.
Some signage is nice. Like I said, I think the big deal not having, with the retail downstairs, having the 40 feet made more sense, but, we're fine, changing that to 35. I think we have more than one parking spot. We have plenty of parking there for what we're doing. So I think we're pretty good with everything.
Jeff, do you own the property to the east?
I do not.
I'm trying to understand one comment on this, on the plan that I'm just noticing, which you got 2 parking spots there that say that they are parking reserved for adjacent lot, house 10?
Oh, yes. So the alley we closed down, and it didn't go far enough back to give any car access to the very back house. So that was another, and so we were allowing parking in the back of that lot for that very back house.
Gotcha.
Yes, things don't work out how you you hope.
I guess the only thing that would be left for me would be on the setback. I mean, it's consistent on one side and inconsistent on the other. Is there any way that we can talk you into mitigating that one corner where it's going to be next to this existing house and your neighbor?
So we have a 5-foot setback, you mean, or they're the the east side?
I mean, I'm not trying to get too creative here, but if there was a way to have 5 foot on the side to the west, and maybe have that widen out a little bit so it becomes a little more consistent on the other side. Again, I'm not trying to get too funky or creative here, but, or if there's some in between where you might be okay with the 10-foot setback, that kind of helps.
On the west side, you said, where the alley is?
Well, no,
The
you know, because we've got two different conditions, of course, right?
Right.
On the west side, you've got the homes that would be consistent on the setback, but then, of course, the existing home on this side is much further back.
Right.
If there's some way that we can agree to kind of help.
Well, like I said, the existing spud already has that setback in there, and that really, you know, would probably lose a row of parking to do that, which
Sure.
you know, I know you're not big on parking, but I think it helps, you know, to have, you know, more than one space per unit, you know.
Sure.
So that would make that hard to lose a row of parking.
Might throw some bike racks in there.
We could, and we are throwing bike racks in there.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is if we could ease the building off of this edge. If we could have a larger setback next to that property, I think that would help
from the
mitigate.
west side?
Yes.
So what, because it has 5 feet, what you're thinking?
That's what I'm asking.
Oh, okay.
I think, you know, to me, if we could pull that off, maybe 15, you know, you'd lose a little bit of building there, but to me, it would help mitigate that corner with the existing home, and I would feel better about it.
Well, and matter of fact, that's where we were looking on that side to putting like a fenced-in bike area there. What if we did like 7? I mean, just where the building is, and still have the parking there. That's kind of splitting the difference, but I hate to get more than.
Well, it's not going to affect your parking, right? If we pull the building
Right,
off
but the
west side.
building, we're losing, you know, building space. But I could see adding a few more feet there, but
You're saying that right now your plan is to have a fenced-in bike area?
Well, we're talking about on that side of the building, having where we could have bikes that could stand up next to the building and then kind of secure them with gates, is what we've been talking about. And then.
Well, what do my fellow commissioners think?
I think we are dangerously close to needing a continuance. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum here. I think a lot of this conversation probably should have taken place in advance. If you didn't reach out to Commissioner Highsmith ahead of time to have a conversation with him, you probably should have.
And I did. We just had some
I'll be honest, we talked. We mostly focused on the use. And because we had a recommendation for denial, I wasn't sure that we were going to hear it today. And we talked, I wasn't sure this was coming before us.
That makes sense. I'm with you. It's the last item, so, you know, we're sitting here and taking it, but it's
back end hurts.
quite a journey here.
Hey, can we take 2 weeks and work through it? Is that okay?
I'm fine with that. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
No, definitely.
Let's just do that then.
Yeah,
make it
we'll do
easy.
that.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Well, then I'll make a recommendation to continue this for 2 weeks.
February 10th, not to be
February
confused
10th?
with our next meeting, which is
good.
not February 24th.
Right. Okay. I'm going to move.
I have a motion to continue the item until February the 10th. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. The item's continued.
All right.
That was fun. We'll see you in 2 weeks. That is our last item today under separate items to be heard. All additional items on today's agenda have been continued to meetings into the future. So with that, we move into additional items, communications and reports. Planning Commission committees. I know we do have a meeting February the 10th, but we haven't had one yet, so I don't think we have a report. Do we, Commissioner Hinkle? All right, look forward to that. Planning Commission members, Commissioner Powers? Okay. Commissioner Coffey? No. Commissioner Privet?
Nothing today.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Happy birthday.
Is today your birthday?
No. My birthday was Christmas Eve.
I was about to say, yeah.
I was just saying.
You turned, yeah, well, I won't say it out loud.
Well, yeah, I'm 40 now, so I'm getting old.
So you're a man.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm an OSU guy. I can't resist. Anytime you say
I'm 40,
age 40,
I'm a
you got
man,
to drop it. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Commissioner Pennington? Okay. Yeah, all right, and Commissioner Highsmith, do you have anything? I kind of skipped you without intending to. I do want to say one thing before we depart, at least from my standpoint. I take real issue with a public comment today that insinuates that anybody, I know all of you personally, that insinuates that you don't care or that you're not attentive or concerned about issues. I encourage Ms. Haas, if she gets this later, to go back and watch any number of meetings where any number of you fine people have expressed frustration over our noticing requirements and other things. I appreciate your service and your collegiality and your grace. I think we try really hard to be respectful of people when they come in here, but it was really hard for me, and if I was too harsh, I apologize, but I find it really hard to sit here and take it on the chin when someone is going to cast or espouse that there's some issue with your ethics or morality, because I know you better than that. So if anybody does it again, I'll be happy to react the same way. So,
I thought you were kind to her, and I thought that was good. I mean, people get frustrated by not understanding the process, and we get to live with the process every 2 weeks. So
I've been worse than that before on easier things, and frankly, I think you did
I thought you showed remarkable
you keep your cool much
restraint.
better than I do, and yeah, I appreciate it.
well, I took issue with it, and I appreciate all you guys a lot. Planning Department, excuse me. Okay, Development Services. Jared, JJ's gone. Okay. Municipal Counselor's Office, welcome back, Susan. Citizens to be heard, Mr. Warrior? Okay. Nobody else? All right. If that's it, if there's no other business, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, any opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.